American TV series, starting to profit from young Sheldon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326, Family Conflict. Think about it again. Have you ever offended Mary unintentionally as the head of the family? Grandma Connie was ready to explain the relationship between George and his wife. Was there such a thing? I really can't remember it. George, who has been focusing on the team invitational tournament recently, really couldn't think of how he could offend his wife. Is that so? Grandma Connie saw that George didn't seem to be lying, so she changed her angle and asked, when was the last time you two were intimate? For an old couple, the harmony of sex can reflect the relationship between the couple. George felt very embarrassed to talk about such a private topic with Grandma Connie. However, since it has come to this point, George, who is dissatisfied with the relationship between the couple, took this opportunity to confide. It's been more than a month. Mary seems to be very resistant to that kind of thing recently. As a normal man, although George is already middle-aged, he still has that need occasionally. He felt it difficult to speak about his wife's non-cooperation, and he couldn't help feeling unhappy in his heart. Could it be menopause? After coming to a conclusion, Grandma Connie advised, women's tempers do become strange during menopause. You have to learn to tolerate her. Menopause? George was a little unsure. As a husband, George actually had some guesses about his wife's emotional changes. It should be noted here that more than a month ago, Mary's position in the church was upgraded to a priest. She had the right to baptize people and preach. It can be said that Mary's career has been rejuvenated since that moment. Of course, it was also from that time that Mary's work in the church became busier and busier, and her care for her family and husband became more and more perfunctory. Until now, she has developed into being picky about her husband. Although George had some guesses, he was reluctant to say it out of respect for his wife. Back in the living room, just when Grandma Connie was persuading George to be more generous, there was a knock on the door outside the house. Brenda, what's the matter? George opened the door and looked at the visitor and asked, sorry to bother you at this time. Brenda, with messy hair and some water stains on her body, looked very embarrassed. The water pipe in my kitchen is broken again. If it's convenient, can you help me check it? Since her husband left, Brenda, who became a single mother, has a hard life. Therefore, George often goes to help with some small things within his ability. In Brenda's kitchen utensils and ingredients are scattered all over the floor. Obviously, this single mother should have been preparing dinner for herself and her secretary son before. Because of the sudden problem with the water pipe, she was a little overwhelmed and knocked over a lot of things in a panic. Sure enough, it is important to have a man in the house. After George arrived, he first checked the leaking place, then picked up the repair tools, and soon repaired the outlet pipe under the sink. It's not a big problem, it's just that the water pipe is old. If you have time, go buy a new one, and I'll replace it for you then. After putting away the tools, George made way and continued, come and take a look. If there's no problem, I'll go back. Thank you so much. Brenda, who has a tough personality, rarely showed a warm look. She took out a dry towel and wiped the water stains on George's head while saying, as a thank you, how about I treat you to dinner? Repairing water pipes, changing light bulbs, and tightening screws. George has really helped Brenda a lot during this period. Brenda, who felt the warmth, became emotional at this moment. On the other side, because of the angle, George looked up and met the woman's gentle eyes. When the four eyes met, the atmosphere became weird. Mom, how long will it take for dinner to be ready? I'm almost starving. Billy's voice in the living room interrupted the ambiguous atmosphere in the kitchen. Billy, who is in the same grade as Missy, has a low IQ and looks silly. It can be seen how difficult Brenda's life is to take care of such a son. Mary should have prepared dinner. I should go back. In the kitchen, George, who was interrupted by the atmosphere, avoided the woman's burning gaze and turned to walk out. At the door of Cooper's house, Mike, who had returned from Myers' place, saw George hesitating at the door. When he walked here, Coach George, what are you doing? Why don't you go in? Mike greeted. No, nothing. George's father, who was thinking about something, was startled when he suddenly heard Mike's voice. Then he reacted and thought about the troubles at home and asked tentatively, Mike, do you think? He wanted to ask Mike if there was any way to improve the relationship between husband and wife. But as soon as he said it, he realized, although Mike is smart, he is still a child after all. It is not appropriate to ask him about that kind of emotional issues. What do you think? Seeing that the other party had no follow-up for a long time, Mike took the initiative to ask. At this time, he also noticed that George's expression was a little wrong. Nothing. Let's go in. Mary and the others should be waiting for us to eat. George's father smiled and didn't mention the previous matter. At this time, in the Cooper's dining room, except for Mike and George's father, everyone else was there. Mike, George, you are finally back. Come and sit down. Grandma Connie greeted the two people who came in. A perfect version in 1619 book bar. George went to sit next to his wife with a guilty conscience. Looking at the table full of rich food and the family members sitting at the table, he suddenly felt guilty. Before at Brenda's house, there was a moment when he admitted that he was moved. But at this moment, he felt the happiness of family again, and was very glad that he had kept the bottom line before. Little George, how come you have time to bring Mandy back for dinner today? Isn't the game hall busy? After praying before dinner, Grandma Connie asked with interest. In the past 2 months, the business of the game hall has been getting better and better. Little George, who was too busy, hadn't brought Mandy back to have dinner with his family for a long time. I came back this time. There are 2 things I want to discuss with you. George said. First, I want Mandy to move back to the house. Now, Mandy's baby is 5 months old, and her pregnancy is very obvious. She is gradually becoming less and less mobile, and she needs someone to take care of her. No problem. Shelley can vacate the room. Mary agreed to George's request. She is about to be upgraded to a mother-in-law, and she does have the obligation to take care of her pregnant daughter-in-law. The second thing is that I want to expand the scale of the game hall, and I will notify you in advance. George said his plan. It's a discussion, but it's actually a notification. It's precisely because he has to be busy with the expansion of the game hall later that George is anxious to entrust the care of his girlfriend to his family. Expansion? Are you serious? Grandma Connie asked in surprise. George and his wife also set their sights on their eldest son. In fact, through Mike's previous analysis, the Cooper family was almost not optimistic about George's game hall business. Of course, I have discussed this with Mandy. We have decided to import 50 more high-end game consoles. At this point, George felt like he was giving orders. A high-end game console costs at least 2,000 yuan, and 50 of them would be 100,000 yuan, which is not a small amount. George has made a big move this time. 50? Where did you get so much money? Grandma Connie asked. I made some money in the past 2 months, and Mandy also invested a part. It should be enough to buy new machines. George said proudly. Besides, I have contacted a reliable channel to get the latest game consoles at a low price. This time, I will be rich. After George's mouth cannon, Grandma Connie and George and his wife were a little persuaded. In their perception, making money is a good thing. George, I think you still need to think about it. With that money, you might as well buy a house first. Mike gave a pertinent suggestion based on reality. George and Mandy's wedding date is only a few months away. Before the two get married, it's time to put the house on the agenda. Besides, there is a saying, think about failure before you win. It would be fine if George was just tossing around in the game hall. He actually invested the private money that Louis left for his daughter to take care of her pregnancy. This was really a poor consideration. Chapter 327. Unlucky Little George. Little George has been gone for 3 days. I don't know how his purchase of the game console went. During dinner at the Cooper family, Grandma Connie unconsciously talked about Little George. Yes, 3 days ago, Mike finally failed to persuade Little George. Under the pressure of getting married and having children, Little George decided to take a gamble. And a big business of 100,000 yuan is a big deal for the Cooper family. Therefore, most of the focus of people in the past few days has been on the Little George who left. There was no phone call, and he was so mysterious. When mentioning the unreliable eldest son, Mary frowned. I don't know why. I have a bad feeling these days. As the saying goes, mother and child are connected by heart. The fact that little George has not been heard from since he left 3 days ago naturally makes Mary, the mother, very worried. Don't worry, little George has grown up. I believe he can take responsibility for his actions. As the head of the family, Father George has confidence in his eldest son. The fledgling will grow up sooner or later. Little George is about to start a family now, and the child is about to be born. In this case, Father George is very happy to see that the other party can stand on his own. Just when everyone was talking about little George, the family phone in the living room rang. It must be little George calling. I'll go answer it. Mary, feeling anxious, walked out of the restaurant quickly. A few minutes later, she came back, as if she had lost all her energy. What's wrong, Mary? Is there something wrong with little George? Looking at her daughter's appearance, Grandma Connie also had a bad feeling in her heart. It's little George. The call is from the police. They said little George was arrested. Mary said in a trance. You know, for ordinary people, going to the police station is not a good thing. What? Little George was arrested. The bad news brought by Mary made Grandma Connie and others change their expressions. Mandy even covered her stomach, as if she had a miscarriage. Calm down. At the critical moment, it was still Grandma Connie who had to be the one. Mandy, don't get excited. With us here, George will be fine. After comforting Mandy, Grandma Connie looked at her daughter and asked seriously, tell me clearly, what happened to George? I didn't hear it clearly. I just remember that the other party said smuggling, seizure, etc. Mary, who was at a loss, complained. I knew that George would not be good. This. Grandma Connie, who didn't know what George had done specifically, was at a loss for a moment. Don't worry, seeing the scene getting chaotic again, Mike comforted everyone and said, I'll call Robin and ask what happened specifically. He had already guessed about George's situation and decided to find Robin to confirm it. Robin, who works at the Ministry of Transportation, is considered the guarantor of George's game hall. Now that George has committed a crime, she should have been notified. I was just about to call you. After the call was connected, Robin's tone was not good. Obviously, as a guarantor, she was also implicated in George's accident. However, considering the relationship between Pastor Jeff and the Cooper family, Robin still told the details of what George had done. Finally, she reminded Mike to inform the Cooper family to go to the police to bail him out. Did you find out what happened to George? Grandma Connie asked, as soon as Mike hung up the phone. I found out. Mike didn't keep it a secret and told the story of what George had done. It turned out that George had bought the game console through a Mexican contact abroad. As luck would have it, he was caught by the border police on his way back from transporting the game console. Fortunately, the things George smuggled were not dangerous goods, so he had the opportunity to be transferred to the local police. However, because of the bad nature of George's behavior, the local police were forced to follow the clues and then sealed his game hall. Now he is being held in the local police station, waiting for the final punishment. So, George is quite capable. Grandma Connie, who knew exactly what George had done, was relieved. Grandma Connie, who has rich life experience, knows that although George's crime seems complicated, the punishment will not be too severe. However, as decent people, George and his wife felt that the sky was falling after hearing about their son's thrilling experience. Mary, you stay at home to take care of Mandy and the children. George, Mike and I will go to the police station soon. Grandma Connie made the most reasonable arrangement. In the police detention room, a large number of unopened game consoles were piled on one side, and George, who was dejected, was on the other side. Do you admit to smuggling game consoles and opening a game hall? The middle-aged police officer holding a stack of documents in his hand interrogated George according to the procedure. The stack of documents recorded all the evidence of George's crimes. A correct version in 1619 book bar. I admit it. George admitted his defeat decisively. He has not been treated violently, and now, except for his poor mental state, his overall condition is actually quite good. just admitted seeing that George was willing to cooperate. The middle-aged police officer did not embarrass him anymore and directly announced the result of the penalty. Since the nature of your crime is bad, as a warning, you will be fined 5,000 yuan or sentenced to 3 months in prison. You can choose. I choose to pay the fine, but isn't 5,000 yuan too much? George's girlfriend is pregnant, so George naturally won't choose to go to jail. And he has just made a big move, and he has spent all his and Mandy's savings. So, George can't take out 5,000 yuan now. So, he suddenly had an idea and thought of playing the emotional card. My girlfriend is about to give birth. To take good care of her, and the baby in her belly, I need a lot of money. So, George's meaning is very clear, that is, to cry poor, so that the other party will be lenient, and pay less fines. It's really touching as expected. The middle-aged police officer was attracted by George's story, but he didn't make concessions. According to the regulations, 5,000 yuan is already your minimum fine. Of course, you can also choose to go to jail. Seeing the police officer's face change, George finally became distressed. Just then, the door of the detention room was pushed open, and Grandma Connie, George's father and Mike walked in accompanied by the receptionist. Why are you here? George, who had just done something wrong, was a little ashamed to face the 3 people. If it weren't for the police calling, we wouldn't know what good things you have done recently. After scolding George, Grandma Connie went to the middle-aged police officer to understand the situation. After knowing that George had to pay bail to leave, Grandma Connie decisively took out 5,000 yuan and handed it to the police officer. Let's go, George. It's time to go home. Grandma Connie maintained her handsome personality. Thank you, I will find a way to return the money to you. The matter was finally over, and George walked out, making a promise. Don't worry about this for now. Think about how to explain it to Mary and Mandy when you go back. Grandma Connie, who made some money in the stock market, didn't care much about the 5,000 yuan. At this time, she even had the leisure to watch the fun. You know, George not only failed in starting a business this time, but also lost all his and Mandy's savings. If the business is gone, how will he support his girlfriend and the baby in her belly? It can be imagined that George's unwise behavior this time will definitely make Mary, as a mother, furious. Chapter 328 Crack. Little George, you must explain to me what happened this time. I can't believe you actually sneaked into Mexico and smuggled 100,000 Mexican dollars. As expected, as soon as little George returned home, he was scolded by Mary. As a Christian, Mary was really shocked by her eldest son's actions this time. Moreover, after knowing that her eldest son not only lost all the funds in his hands, but also his game hall business was closed down, she was even more angry and furious. You have lost all the money that Mandy's father left for her to raise her pregnancy. Tell me what you are going to do in the future? Mandy, who was standing aside, saw that her boyfriend was scolded and couldn't raise his head. She went up to him and held his hand with heartache and comforted him. It's okay, I believe that little George will cheer up sooner or later. Facts have proved that Mandy is a very qualified candidate for wife, except that she is a little older. However, the deep love shown by Mandy and little George could not calm Mary down. Instead, she became even angrier. Don't cover up for him. I've seen since he was a kid that he's not good at anything. Seeing that his wife was getting more and more outrageous, she was about to raise her voice to her eldest son's personality. George's father also persuaded her. Okay, Mary, little George is still young, and it's inevitable that he will go astray. As long as he can learn a lesson from this mistake, it's fine. Fortunately, George used cash flow for smuggling this time. So in addition to losing all the money he had, he didn't owe any foreign debts. This means that George's public credit score has not been damaged, and naturally it will not affect his future entrepreneurship or job hunting. It's good news. George, I haven't said anything about you yet. The Cooper family almost had a criminal. How do you usually act as a father? Mary, who was angry, immediately turned her spearhead after hearing her husband's voice. That look was somewhat personal grudge. Mary, seeing that the situation was about to escalate, Grandma Connie, who had experienced it, stopped her crazy daughter. Mutual respect and harmonious relationship between husband and wife are the secrets to a long-term family. Getting angry and venting negative emotions after a problem does not solve any problem. So, Grandma Connie comforted her daughter and said, now is not the time to pursue responsibility. We should think about how to help little George out of the predicament. Little George, who lost his game hall business and all his savings, will have a baby in a few months. Before that, he still needs to consider the issue of marriage with Mandy. Under all kinds of circumstances, little George, who is at the bottom of his life, really needs the help of his family. He caused all this himself. What can we do? Mary, who had not vented her anger, was interrupted several times in a row. She felt wronged, that the whole family seemed to be targeting her. Moreover, facing the mess in front of her, she had no good solution. Therefore, in a irritable mood, Mary chose to escape and turned to walk towards the room. This, Grandma Connie's daughter's strange reaction made her believe that the other party was indeed in menopause. And when facing a woman in menopause, she naturally had to be more generous. Grandma Connie turned to her son-in-law and said, George, go and have a look. Try to be nice to her. Okay. George, who was still a little guilty about what happened at Brenda's house, shrugged and followed Mary to the room. Okay, we'll talk about little George later. Now, let's continue to enjoy dinner. After George and his wife left, Grandma Connie greeted the rest of the people in a relaxed tone. You know, because of little George's matter, Grandma Connie and others had not finished their previous dinner. You did a big thing today, eat more. In the restaurant, Grandma Connie half-jokingly put a large portion of food in front of little George. Food can soothe people's hearts. Little George needs this now. Mike, George and Mary won't get divorced. I heard Billy say that the reason his parents divorced was because of a quarrel. Missy approached Mike and asked in a low voice. Children with simple minds can often feel the changes in the atmosphere at home. Although Grandma Connie was trying to liven up the atmosphere at the table, Missy, who had a high emotional intelligence, still read the abnormal atmosphere at home. The analogy she made was the divorced Brenda family next door. Billy was Brenda's son. Don't worry, I can assure you that George and Mary will not divorce. Mike whispered to comfort the little girl. Really? Mrs. mood brightened up after hearing Mike's words. Of course Mike nodded affirmatively. The fundamental reason why Brenda and his wife divorced so easily was that they both had very strong personalities. The longer these two people who are both strong live together, the more conflicts they will have. The situation of George and his wife was different. Although Mary was also strong in character, George was gentle and tolerant. These two people with complementary personalities would not generally get to the point of divorce unless there was a major change. However, Mike still underestimated Mary's temper. In the next few days, Mary continued her bad temper, especially with a conspicuous bag, like little George and the family. The person who was most affected by her bad temper was her husband as the person next to her. Although George is gentle and a little cowardly, he will also lose his temper when he is bullied. After being scolded by his wife countless times, George's father, who could no longer bear it, chose to remain silent. Check out the correct version on 16 to 9 book bar. Since then, George and his wife have started a cold war. Where are George Jr. and George? It was dinner time again. Mary, who was preparing to pray before dinner, found that two people were missing from the table. George Jr. is in the basement. He said he has no appetite. Mandy glanced at Mary and answered carefully. During this period, when Mary was scolding her husband, she also did not let go of her eldest son who made a mistake. In the eyes of her family, Mary, who attacked indiscriminately, has become a big devil. As a future daughter-in-law, Mandy is now a little afraid of her mother-in-law. It's up to him. He can eat if he wants. Mary complained habitually and then asked again, what about George? I remember he was in the living room before. He went to Brenda's house to help change the new water pipe. Grandma Connie answered, and at the same time, she looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. Grandma Connie has seen the changes in her daughter recently. She had advised her to change her temper before, but the effect was not good. Brenda? Mary's tone was a little dissatisfied, but she didn't say much about it. Then, she suppressed her anger and started to pray before the meal with her family. George, thank you so much. to express my gratitude, how about I buy you a drink? Brenda said, handing over a glass of red wine that had been prepared long ago. Unlike the depressing dining atmosphere at the Cooper family, the atmosphere in Brenda's kitchen seemed very ambiguous. For a single mother who has lived alone for a long time, George's gentle and reliable personality is very attractive. It was after frequent contact with George that Brenda had some thoughts that she shouldn't have. Finally, today, she got excited and launched the seduction plan. For this reason, Brenda deliberately sent her son away and changed into a red dress that showed off her figure. George, who had had enough of the cowardice at home, could not resist this temptation. Then let's have a drink. George, who didn't want to go home, took the high-heeled glass. Brenda usually looked capable and aggressive, but when she suddenly became gentle and matched her voluptuous figure, she really had some charm. Chapter 329 Cracks, continued. Red wine, candles, dinner. Brenda, who had been prepared, then led George to the restaurant, where a candlelight dinner was placed on the table. They were all adults, and at this point, George knew what the other party was thinking. After hesitating at the door, George finally went to the table and sat down. Although George is now fat and a little sloppy, he was also a handsome guy who was very popular with girls when he was young. It was only because he and Mary had a child by accident that they got married and lived a simple family life. Now Brenda's passionate teasing made him feel like he was back to his youth. What are you doing? George sat down, looking at the candlelight dinner in front of him, and opened the topic knowingly. You know, my life has become a mess since Herschel left. So, occasionally I also need some mood to reward myself. Brenda unconsciously showed a wave of weakness. Then, she diverted the topic appropriately and asked, by the way, how are you? You and Mary must be very happy. Don't mention it. Mary seems to have reached menopause recently. Due to the atmosphere, George complained about his wife. How could this happen? She doesn't know how to cherish such an excellent husband like you. Brenda followed George's topic and did not forget to sow discord between the two. One party deliberately guided and the other party needed to talk. So, in the following candlelight dinner, the content of Brenda's chat with George became more and more private and ambiguous. Can I ask you to dance? I haven't danced with anyone for a long time. When the time was right, Brenda played a straight ball. A little physical contact can accelerate the warming of feelings. Of course, to be honest, I haven't danced with anyone for a long time. The bad family life at home made George enjoy the warmth brought by Brenda at this moment. Then, in the sound of soothing music, the two figures awkwardly hug each other. I'm full. See why George hasn't come back yet in the Cooper's restaurant. Mary was a little uneasy. Her husband hadn't come back for so long. As a woman with a sixth sense, Mary seemed to feel the threat from Brenda. While Mary sympathized with a single mother living alone next door, she did not forget that they were once sworn enemies. Will there be any problem? Missy asked worriedly as she watched her mother leave in a rage. What can be the problem? Isn't it good now? Grandma Connie, who was a bit nervous, smiled and analyzed. Mary looked jealous. This proves that she still cares about your father in her heart. I hope so. Missy, who was a little devil, was obviously not so impressive. Although Mike had made a promise before, the situation in Billy's family still shrouded the little girl like a shadow. Sure enough, Mrs. Worry was not wrong. A few minutes later, Mary came back angrily again. Without saying a word, she took her coat and walked out. The suppressed anger on her face made anyone see that something big had happened to her. It's dark now. Where are you going? And where's George? Grandma Connie asked worriedly. Don't mention George to me. Thinking of the scene she just saw, Mary was furious. After a venting roar, she put on her coat and disappeared outside. Now she urgently needs to calm down. What's wrong? Grandma Connie, who was yelled at by her daughter for no reason, was still a little confused. Mike, go to Brenda's house to see what happened? Little George, you. Grandma Connie recovered quickly. Mary's reaction just now made her realize that something must have happened in Brenda's house. So, Grandma Connie first sent Mike to find out the situation, and then asked little George to follow Mary to avoid any accidents. But as soon as she said this, Grandma Connie realized that little George was now reflecting in the basement. Forget it. Let's not worry about Mary for now. Mike, go find George first. Grandma Connie made the final arrangement. At this time, in the dining room of Brenda's house, accompanied by soothing music and an ambiguous atmosphere, the two people who were dancing ballroom dance were getting closer and closer. How could a normal cat resist the temptation of a fish? Facing Brenda's sexy and willing face, George finally couldn't help but slowly move his face closer to her. At the moment, when the atmosphere was thick and their lips touched, George suddenly covered his heart and fell backwards. For a moment, the candlelight dinner and the tape recorder on the table in the back were swept to the ground. What's wrong with you? The ambiguous atmosphere was interrupted, and Brenda was also shocked when she saw George's pale face. I'm fine. George struggled to get up. In the end, this family-oriented man still couldn't break through the barrier in his heart. At that moment, he thought of his wife Mary and the cute children at home. Under the drastic emotional fluctuations, his already unhealthy heart had problems. You look very bad. Do you want to take you to the hospital? Brenda calmed down from her previous obsession. Although she and Mary didn't get along, their relationship was actually pretty good. They were the kind of best friends who didn't know each other until they fought. At the same time, they were also the kind of good friends who would help each other when they were in trouble. Therefore, Brenda never really thought about destroying Mary's family. Now that she has calmed down completely, she feels not only guilty, but also afraid of what she did in a fit of rage. She is afraid of losing the friendship of the Cooper family. I'll go get someone to help. Seeing George's frail appearance, Brenda was ready to call for help. No, don't call Mary. I'll be fine in a while. Although he didn't really make a big mistake, George is still afraid to see his family, especially his wife. Please don't tell Mary about our past. George pleaded with a guilty conscience. I just invited you to a thank you dinner. What can happen between us? Brenda regained her capable look and wisely skipped the embarrassing topic. Then, the two smiled at each other tacitly, and everything was said without words. By the way, if you really need that, you can actually go to the bar. I believe that with your charm, you will not lack a partner. After reaching an agreement, George even had the idea of joking. Read the correct version in the 1619 book bar. Well, you don't have to worry about that. Let's talk about your health. What's wrong? Brenda said, and was about to help George up. After such a long time, George's symptoms of sweating and pale face have not been relieved. It's best not to move him. George has heart problems. It would be better to let him lie flat. When George was struggling to sit up with the help of Brenda, Mike's voice came from outside the restaurant. George's problem is insufficient blood supply to the heart. Lying flat is good for blood circulation throughout the body. Please bring a towel and a cup of warm water. After laying him flat, Mike said to Brenda, who was stunned on the side. Okay, I'll go. Brenda quickly brought what Mike needed. Then, looking at George lying on the ground, she asked, is he really okay like this? Don't worry, as long as he is not stimulated again, he will recover after a rest. Mike said, while propping up George's head with a towel and feeding him some warm water. 10 minutes later, George, who felt that his body had returned to normal, climbed up by himself. Sorry, Brenda. I scared you today. George, who didn't dare to stay here any longer, gave Brenda a look of pleading and said goodbye. If it's alright, I'll leave first. Okay, goodbye. Seeing this, Brenda also waved her hand with relief and gave George a reassuring look. At this time, the two were probably still feeling lucky that the secret between them had not been discovered, and it seemed that they had decided to keep the previous things to themselves. By the way, Mike, why did you suddenly come to Brenda's house? Walking outside, George felt much more relaxed in the evening breeze. Therefore, he was in the mood to chat. Does your heart still feel bad now? Mike asked a very strange question. From Mary's previous performance, to the situation in Brenda's restaurant, and even the eye contact between George and Brenda before, Mike could easily analyze the general situation. So before informing George of the bad news, he needed to consider the other party's physical condition. My heart is fine now. George shook his head and asked curiously, why are you asking this? Just to prepare you mentally. I have bad news to tell you. Mike stopped and said with a serious expression. What bad news? Stared at by Mike's serious eyes, George, who was already guilty, felt guilty again for no reason. Actually, before I came, Mary also came to see you. And she looked very bad after she went back. After making sure that the other party was prepared mentally, Mike told the bad news. What? George was stunned on the spot, as if he was struck by lightning. After a long time, he seemed to react and asked guiltily, is she okay now? I don't know about that. Anyway, when she went out, she looked very angry. Mike roughly recounted Mary's previous behavior. What was Connor's reaction? George seemed to have misunderstood something. He seemed to have tacitly accepted that his cheating was known to his family. Grandma Connie is at home taking care of Mandy and the children, and they don't know about you and Brenda. Mike could see George's worry at a glance. It's okay. George was relieved that his wife didn't loudly publicize her foolish behavior. At the same time, he felt even more guilty. Do you know where Mary went? I need to give her an explanation and apology. She should have gone to the church. Mike pointed out the direction to George. Considering his physical condition, he asked one more question. Do you need me to go with you to find someone? Mary's range of activities was not large. Apart from the time she stayed at home, she spent most of her time working at the church. Occasionally, she would go shopping at the big supermarket in town on weekends. At this time, after she ran away from home, she was likely to go to the church. No, I can do it by myself. Knowing where his wife was, George prepared to find her alone and seek her forgiveness. Chapter 330 Twists and Turns. George came to the church by moonlight. Turning the corner, he saw his depressed wife sitting alone on the steps in front of the church. Just as George was about to apologize, the church door opened, and a figure walked out and sat down next to Mary. Seeing this, George quickly hid in the grove nearby. After all, it was not a glorious thing for George to apologize. So he wanted to wait until his wife was alone before going forward to apologize. Oh, Pastor Jeff. I didn't expect there was someone else in the church. Mary, who was sitting in front of the church, was a little surprised when she saw who was coming. At this time, it was already dark. Most people should stay at home and enjoy their leisure time. I came here to check some information. You know, it's not easy to manage a church. Jeff, who was off work, didn't have the airs of a pastor at all. He looked at Mary and asked, what about you? Why are you here too? And you look very depressed. Nothing, just some small problems. Mary, whose thoughts were exposed, said with a strong face. Then, she took out a box of cigarettes from her body. Would you like one? Mary lit one for herself skillfully and handed the remaining cigarette to Pastor Jeff. No, no, no. Pastor Jeff waved his hands hurriedly. As a Christian, I don't smoke, and you shouldn't smoke either. Although he said so, Pastor Jeff, who saw that Mary was in a bad mood, didn't persuade her much. After that, the two sat side by side in front of the church, one smoking silently, and the other accompanying quietly. Not far away, George, who was hiding behind a small tree branch, was a little skeptical about life after seeing his wife smoking. After being married for so long, he thought he knew his wife very well, but he never knew that she would smoke. In front of the church, Pastor Jeff waited until Mary finished smoking a whole cigarette before speaking. Did you encounter any difficulties? Why didn't George accompany you? Don't mention him to me. Mary shook her head. Her fragile nerves were touched. I need a shoulder now. After saying that, regardless of whether Pastor Jeff agreed or not, she fell into his arms and shed tears silently. Under the moonlight, the actions of the two looked unusually intimate. Damn it, I knew it in the grove. George inexplicably felt like he had an extra hat on his head. His wife has been getting colder and colder towards him recently because of the work at the church. Considering the scene in front of him, George couldn't help but think about it. At this moment, he really wanted to go out and loudly rebuke the couple. But thinking of what happened between him and Brenda before, George felt that he had no right to blame his wife. Finally, he got out of the grove and walked towards home. On the other side, Pastor Jeff, who had another person in his arms, supported his arms and dared not move. After a long time, he asked carefully, did George do something wrong? Mary, who had shed tears, felt much better. After breaking away from Pastor Jeff's arms, she said, you would never have thought that George cheated on me. And Brenda, the child is so big, but he is still so shameless. Along with the complaints, Mary shook out all the situations she had seen before. Pastor Jeff, who was standing by, was more and more surprised as he listened, and said, "Do you have any misunderstanding? As far as I know, George is not that kind of person. George's gentle temperament made him very popular among his acquaintances. I saw it with my own eyes. I can't be wrong." Thinking of the scene she saw at Brenda's house before, Mary became sad again. "No way. Did you see them do that?" Pastor Jeff stretched out his two index fingers and touched them. "That's not the case," Mary recalled, "but I saw with my own eyes that they hugged each other. What you see is not necessarily the truth." Pastor Jeff is very confident in George's character. In order to convince Mary, he gave an example. For example, "Just now, we also hugged together. But we all know that there is nothing between us. Is that so?" With the example in front of her, Mary recalled her husband's usual behavior and became uncertain. "That's it. You shouldn't jump to conclusions before you understand the situation." Pastor Jeff struck while the iron was hot and said, "How about this? I'll go with you to confront George. If he and Brenda have nothing to do, that's the best. If he really made a mistake, I will help you condemn him in the name of God." Mary had always had expectations for her husband, otherwise she wouldn't be so sad. Therefore, under the persuasion of Pastor Jeff, she decided to give her husband a chance to explain. At the Cooper family, Grandma Connie had just arranged for little Sheldon and Missy to go back to their rooms to rest, and saw George stumbling into the house alone. "Why did you come back alone? Didn't Mike say you went to find Mary?" Grandma Connie said, and was about to go forward to support George. George's face was now covered with sweat, and his face was as white as paper, which looked very wrong. "Mary." Before he finished speaking, George fell to the ground. Under anxiety, his heart had problems again, and he could only walk back from the church. It was already the limit. "Mike, come and help. George is dying." Seeing George falling in front of her with increasingly rapid breathing, Grandma Connie, who was frightened, quickly called for help in the direction of the living room. After all, he was an elderly person, and Grandma Connie could not move George, who had fallen to the ground by herself. Check the correct version in the 16:9 book forum. The situation is not good. He must be sent to the hospital. Mike, who rushed over after hearing the noise, checked George's pupils and pulse, and gave a judgment. A series of stimulations finally overloaded George's heart. Just as Mike sent George out to the car, the rest of the Cooper family who heard the noise gathered together, and even little George walked out of the basement. Not long after, with everyone working together, George's father lay down in the back of the pickup truck covered with a blanket. What happened? What happened to George? When Mike was about to leave, Mary, accompanied by Pastor Jeff, just arrived. Seeing her husband's poor condition, Mary immediately stepped forward to take care of him. "Thank God, Mary, you're back. Then you and little George will take George to the hospital together." Grandma Connie arranged. Compared to little George, Mary is obviously more suitable to take care of George. For your husband's condition, the risk of surgery is very high, so the hospital recommends that you use drug therapy first and observe the situation first. Of course, which treatment plan to choose ultimately depends on your own wishes. Also, no matter which treatment plan is used, the patient needs to maintain a good mentality and cannot be stimulated again. In the ward, the doctor introduced the situation to Mary. George, who was hanging on the bed next to him with an fourth drip, was out of danger after emergency treatment, but he had not yet woken up. "Okay, doctor. We will pay attention to the follow-up treatment." Mary was no longer in the mood to pursue her husband's cheating. She just hoped that her husband would get better. In the corridor outside, little George, who was sitting with Mike, was frightened by his father's previous symptoms. He had been growing up under the wings of his parents and suddenly realized the fragility of life. "Mike, can you help me? I don't want to be a burden to this family." At this moment, little George seemed to have really grown up and had the responsibility of a man. Come to think of it, if Father George really fell down, who could the family rely on? "It's good that you have thought it through. My previous proposal is still valid. I can help you open a small repair shop." Taking this opportunity, Mike led little George onto the right track. On the other side, Father George, who was in a coma, finally woke up. Looking at his wife who looked worried beside the bed, he confessed guiltily, "Mary, I admit that I almost made a big mistake before, but I can assure you that I have never done anything to let you down." "Don't say it, George. I believe you." Mary held her husband's hand and said, "The most important thing now is that you can get better. We need you." In the face of life and death, the old couple seemed to have untied all their knots. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 Storm Strikes. "Mike, is it really okay for George and Mary to do that?" Missy asked, looking at the scene in the kitchen. Now it has been a week since George's father had heart problems. Today is the day he was discharged from the hospital after the observation period. According to the hospital, George's heart problems have been basically controlled, and he only needs to cooperate with drug treatment in the future to live like a normal person. To celebrate this good news, George and his wife invited Mike, who had helped a lot before, to have a big meal at home. At this time, the couple was preparing a big meal in the kitchen. One person cooked, and the other helped, looking very harmonious. It's just that there was a little more politeness in the way they get along. It doesn't seem like an old couple who have lived together for many years. It seems that George is cheating, and Mary's throwing himself into their arms still left a haze in their hearts. The sensitive Missy discovered this. "Don't worry, George and Mary are just in an extraordinary period now. I believe it won't be long before they can return to normal," Mike answered without being surprised. "As I said, George and his wife have very compatible personalities, and it's only a matter of time before they get back together. The world of adults is really complicated." Missy shook her head in confusion. However, seeing that her parents were not arguing, her worries were much less. "Hey, what are you talking about?" At this time, Grandma Connie, who came to eat, happened to walk into the living room with Peggy. Then, without waiting for Mike and the others to answer, she said to herself, "Have you read today's newspaper? It says that, because of the greenhouse effect and cold wave, a strong wind will soon enter the country." Mike then discovered that Grandma Connie was holding a newspaper in her hand. In the message column below, there was a tofu-sized notice indicating that a strong wind was blowing from the coast of Mexico, and the first to bear the brunt were Hawaii, Texas, and Louisiana, which were the border states. At the same time, the newspaper also specifically reminded that residents of these states should pay attention to strong wind warnings and prevention and control. It is better to believe it than not to believe it. I think this news is worth paying attention to. Just like the last heavy rain warning, Mike's weather forecast feature also gave a warning this time. It's just that the feeling is very erratic, and Mike is a little unsure. "Are you talking about the strong wind in Mexico? I heard that the strong wind caused great property losses to the local area." Little George came in with Mandy. Compared with the previous few days, little George, who had a new goal in life, looked much more energetic. Mandy, whose belly was getting bigger and bigger, also had a happy expression on her face. This is nature's punishment. In the corner of the sofa, little Sheldon, who was studying physics, immediately joined the discussion. "The carbon dioxide emitted by the factory has seriously damaged the ozone layer, thus causing the greenhouse effect and melting the glaciers in the Arctic and Antarctic. This is a global disaster with the rapid development of American industry. Environmentalists have already shown signs." Little Sheldon, who cares about human affairs, was obviously affected. I know, the teacher said in the science class that cow farts damage the environment." Missy, who likes to join in the fun, immediately agreed. "Not really, cow farts are the same as human farts, and will not cause environmental damage. So, cows are innocent." Little Sheldon couldn't help but refute Missy. Then, in the heated discussion between the two, the topic turned from strong wind warning to shit and urine farts. "Okay, kids, Connie, it's time to eat." Mary's call in the restaurant interrupted the cow fart problem between little Sheldon and Missy. It's just that this strong wind was indeed predicted by little Sheldon, a disaster that swept the world. In the next few days, newspapers continued to report strong wind warnings. The most serious one was that the strong wind warning made the front page headlines. However, Texas is now in the transition between spring and summer, with sunny days, birds singing and flowers blooming, so the strong wind warning has not received enough attention from residents. But what is coming will eventually come. Before school was over that day, the school specially summoned all the teachers and students to give a notice. In order to prevent the upcoming strong wind, the school will be closed for a week. Obviously, the newly appointed principal Tim seemed to have received inside information. In this way, the students ushered in the short holiday with laughter. Mike, do you think the strong wind will really come? Looking at the sunny weather, Lina was already thinking about how to play with Mike in the next week. Of course, the recent continuous strong wind warnings have made the girl somewhat worried. It's always right to be careful. Mike's bad premonition has been getting stronger and stronger recently. And while he was talking, that bad premonition suddenly became 100 times stronger. Mike quickly stretched out his hand and felt a breeze passing through his fingertips with a hint of coolness. The strong wind should be coming soon, and the intensity is not low. Mike said seriously, to ensure safety, Lina, you come with me to Myers Villa to take shelter. Just at this moment, the breeze turned into a light wind. Low pressure appeared, and the sky gradually darkened. A correct version of the book in 1619. Everything indicates that a big storm is brewing. My parents are still at home, and I want to accompany them. In a panic, Lina made a choice. Keep in touch. Remember to call me if you have anything. The situation was sudden, and Mike didn't act pretentiously. After watching the girl drive away, Mike turned to Maya and Peggy beside him and said, you go to Amy's car and wait for me first. I'll go find George, and we'll go to the villa together later. Cooper's family and Connor's grandmother's house are both independent cabins, which are obviously not as resistant to risks as Maya's big villa. So just in case, Mike prepared to take the Cooper family and Connor's grandmother to Maya's house to avoid the wind. At this time, the students who were still celebrating the small holiday leisurely on campus also felt the change in the weather and rushed out of the school gate one by one. Mike went against the crowd and finally found the weak father George and the little Sheldon, who was at a loss at the edge. This old and weak combination looked very embarrassed in this sudden situation. George, you go pick up Missy, and we will meet at Myers Villa later. You know where the villa is, Mike said loudly, after protecting George and his son to the school parking lot. At this time, the outdoor wind force has reached about level 5, and the branches are whistling, accompanied by a drizzle of rain. I can find the big villa in the suburbs. Father George also knew that now was not the time to hesitate, and said, I'll leave little Sheldon in your care. I'll go pick up Missy now. When Mike was protecting little Sheldon and got into Amy's extended Lincoln, it was completely dark outside, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. Judging from the situation, the weather warning in the newspaper was not wrong. This is an unprecedented climate disaster. Little George, where are you? While the Lincoln was on the way to the villa, Mike called little George. With Mike's financial support, little George has opened a small repair shop in town that integrates car washing, tire repair, and parts replacement. I'm rushing home. This damn weather is really terrible. I can hardly see the road. Along with the whistling wind, little George's complaints came from the phone. Listen to me, this strong wind is not simple, and the house may not be safe, so I want you to go back and take Grandma Connie and the others to Myers Villa. Mike quickly finished his plan and asked, do you know where the villa I'm talking about is? I know, it's the big villa in the suburbs. Little George said reliably, I'll take Grandma Connie and the others there in a while. Amid the whistling sounds, the wind speed outdoors had exceeded level 6, and there were strings of freezing rain in the sky, causing a layer of fog to rise on the car windows. Chapter 330 Till the Storm is Coming continued. Fortunately, the population of the small town of Telford is not dense. Although the road conditions are very bad in bad weather, fortunately there is no large-scale traffic jam. More than half an hour later, in the storm, Mike and others arrived at the big villa. Helen and Alan were looking at the door. Thank God, you are back safely. Helen went forward and hugged her returning daughter. This big storm came so suddenly that it obviously scared Helen, a single mother. Alan, you arranged someone to get dry towels and clothes. Maya and the others need to clean up. Helen, who was relieved, arranged the work. Not long after, Mike and others, who wiped off the rain on their bodies and put on new clothes, gathered in the big living room of the villa. At this time, it has been decorated as a temporary banquet hall, with various foods and small desserts, as well as hot tea on the table. Because the temperature dropped sharply, Helen also arranged for someone to light a fireplace. On the TV in front, reporters were also broadcasting outdoor interviews on this special weather. It can be seen in the video that there are heavy rain and howling winds outdoors, and reporters and passers-by can no longer stand steadily. Compared with the bad weather outside, being able to curl up in a warm sofa and drink a cup of hot tea is a rare enjoyment. Not long after, there was a noise at the door of the villa. With the cold and raindrops, George and Grandma Connie protected Mandy, a pregnant woman, and walked into the villa. Dry towels, hot water, warm clothes. After another round of tidying up, George and the other two also came to the living room and sat on the sofa. Seeing Mandy's comfortable look, the storm didn't seem to have much impact on her. Or rather, George and Grandma Connie protected her very well. Do you know how bad the weather is outside now? George, who had eaten something, shared, I feel like our car was almost blown away just now. Fortunately, I have excellent driving skills. The comfortable environment made him completely relaxed. By the way, Mike, do you know how much money the shop made today? George, who had just opened a car repair shop, was still fresh. How much? In order not to spoil the fun, Mike echoed. Mike invested more than 50,000 Migo yuan in the comprehensive auto repair shop, from site selection to decoration. In return, he received 60% of the shares of the shop at one time. Of course, for Mike, who is now worth more than 10 million yuan, this investment is more to help George, and making money is just a bonus, and not worth paying too much attention to. It's more than 400 Migo yuan a day. We are going to get rich. George said with a sigh. I never thought that the auto repair shop would make so much money before. Earning the money of an ordinary white-collar worker in a day is really worth George's happiness for a while. But this is understandable. Migo is in a period of economic development, and the proportion of labor service fees is gradually increasing. Even if you take a towel and go to the traffic light to wipe the driver's car, you can earn hundreds of Migo yuan in tips, if you are lucky. Not to mention that George combines car washing and car repair, which is a technical job. The income is good. Work hard. When you open a branch in the future, you can also be the boss. Mike smiled and encouraged George, who was full of fighting spirit. Just as the two were imagining the future, Father George, who was soaked in rain, walked into the villa with his little daughter Missy. You are all here. After seeing George and others, Father George smiled. Missy was even more happy to throw herself into Mike's arms. Looking at the cleverness of this little girl, this storm did not seem to have much impact on her. Ms. Helen, thank you for providing shelter for me and my family. Father George, who had tidied up, came to the living room and first expressed his gratitude to the owner of the villa. It's nothing. It's been a long time since the family has been so lively. Helen responded with a smile. Then, a group of people sat in the living room, playing chess and card games, while chatting about the weather. Compared with the storm outside, this is a quiet place in the midst of noise. By the way, where is Mary? Why didn't I see her? Father George, who was playing cards with his eldest son, suddenly asked. Oh no, I almost forgot. Mom should have a problem. Little George was stunned. All the previous situations made him forget about Mary. What's wrong? Didn't Mary come with you? George's father asked worriedly. When we left, Mom was busy with church work. She said on the phone that she would drive over, but she didn't come for so long. George explained guiltily. Because Mandy was pregnant, George was in a hurry to send her to the villa, so he didn't wait for Mary to move together. What's wrong, George? Grandma Connie, who was chatting with Ms. Helen, saw that George looked wrong, so she asked. It's Mary. She is probably trapped at home, or on the way. Thinking that his wife was still outside in such weather, George couldn't help but worry. As the saying goes, a day of marriage is 100 days of grace. Read the correct version in 16:9 book bar. What's more, George still has deep feelings for Mary. What can I do? After knowing the truth, Grandma Connie was also worried about her daughter. Grandma Connie didn't know that George had called Mary before. Don't worry, let's call Mary again to confirm the situation first. Mike, who was sitting on the other side, also learned what happened. Yes, call George took the phone from Mike. After a ring, the phone was connected. Mary, where are you now? Is the situation okay? George asked anxiously as soon as the phone was connected. George, I'm at home. It's raining too hard outside, so I went out. The house is leaking. Mary said intermittently. Her mood was very unstable. Think about it, as a woman, staying alone in a leaking house in such bad weather, the situation will definitely not be good. Don't be afraid, take care of yourself. George tried his best to comfort his wife. Suddenly, a scream came from the phone. What's wrong? Mary. George's heart was also lifted at this moment. The window was blown away, and the lights at home are not on. On the phone, Mary hadn't finished her words, and she was forced to hang up the phone with the sound of the current. Obviously, after the circuit, Cooper's telephone line also had problems. No, Mary needs me now. After the phone call, George was more worried about his wife. Then, he got up and prepared to go back to find Mary. Calm down, George. Mary will be fine at home. It's more dangerous for you to go out now. Grandma Connie persuaded George. It was completely dark outside the window. The flashes of lightning and thunder in the sky showed the power of nature. No need to persuade, I can't leave Mary. The worry about his wife made George overcome his fear of nature. Mike, Grandma Connie, the children are in your care. And little George, take good care of Mandy. After the instructions, George walked towards the door firmly. Here, Amy, under the instruction of Ms. Helen, quickly went to the room to get a set of waterproof warm clothes, a strong light hand lantern, and a protective helmet. Before George walked out of the villa, she handed it to the other party. Then, George, wrapped in warm clothes, walked into the night. In the villa behind, everyone was no longer in the mood to play. Chapter 333 Chaos. Freezing rain, strong winds and fog made visibility very low at night. Even with the high beam on, George could hardly see the road conditions in front of him. However, with the obsession in his heart, he finally returned to the door of his house safely. Because the strong wind broke the circuit, the Cooper family's house was now dark. The independent cabin also seemed to be shaky in the heavy rain and strong wind. Mary, Mary. George rushed into the house with a flashlight and shouted loudly. Several windows in the house were broken, and there were leaks everywhere. In addition to the roof, to keep out the rain, it was not much better than the outdoors. George, is that you? Just when George was extremely anxious, he heard his wife's response. When the flashlight turned, he saw that Mary, wrapped in a blanket, was huddled in the corner of the living room, with fear and helplessness on her face visible to the naked eye. Mary, are you okay? George went over to hug his wife and wiped the rain off her face. Thank God, it's so terrible. I thought I would never see you again. Feeling the warm embrace, Mary couldn't hold back the tears in her eyes. On the other side, George, after a brief hug with his wife, felt that the wind outside was getting stronger and stronger, and the house was already shaking slightly. We can't stay here anymore, George said decisively. Can you still walk? Let's go to the basement to hide. The previous fear made Mary consume too much energy, and it was difficult for her to even stand up at this time. So George half supported and half dragged his wife out. After passing through the storm in the yard, the two arrived at the basement where little George lived. Compared with the independent cabin on the ground, the basement, which is mostly underground, is much better. Wipe off the water stains on your body first. I'll find a way to get a pot of hot tea to warm you up. George found a relatively clean towel and handed it to his wife. Because little George lives here, the daily necessities in the basement are quite complete. Towels, blankets, quilts, etc. are all available. Because this place was once used as a toy storage room by little Sheldon, there are many strange things piled up in the corner. Among them is an old generator. Mary, who wrapped herself in a warm quilt again, felt relieved inexplicably when she saw her husband busying around. 10 minutes later, George successfully started the generator. With a rumble, there was light in the basement. Got After the power was turned on, George breathed a sigh of relief and waved his arms excitedly. You know, in the dark, light is so precious. It can give people strength, courage and confidence. 10 minutes later, George, who boiled a pot of hot tea with an electric kettle, went to Mary with hot tea and some snacks found in the basement. You have a bad heart. Take a rest. Mary wiped the sweat off her husband's forehead and pulled him into the quilt. Facing the increasingly bad weather outside, a rare warm scene appeared in the basement. It's great that you can come back in the quilt. Mary hugged her husband affectionately. But before George could be happy for long, Mary whispered, actually, I saw you and Brenda hugging each other that day. God knows how sad I was at that time. I promise, Brenda and I didn't do anything. George hurriedly explained, and then changed the subject and said sourly, what about you and Pastor Jeff? I also saw you hugging each other. Right in front of the church. Why do you think so? Pastor Jeff is a good man. I just borrowed his shoulder that day. Mary explained the situation of that day in detail. In the bad weather, the two people in the basement unknowingly solved the gap while talking to each other. George, do you want it now? Stimulated by today's experience, Mary had a different feeling. The two looked at each other, and the temperature gradually rose. Of course, I have waited for this day for a long time. Is your heart okay? Try it and you will know. There was still a violent storm outside, and in the basement, accompanied by the roar of the generator, there were faint applause. This sudden bad weather lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, sweeping across multiple areas including Hawaii, Texas, and Homer. It caused hundreds of casualties and inestimable property losses. So far, this huge natural disaster has attracted the attention of the whole of America. Experts specifically called this spring cold wave Adam. It means that this disaster is caused by human greed. It also warns that, if we do not pay attention to protecting the environment, this natural disaster, that is rare in 60 years, may only be the beginning. While experts were discussing the causes of this natural disaster, environmentalists from all over the country also took the opportunity to emerge. They were busy outside many factories and farms. For a time, the environmental protection trend was rarely popular in various parts of America. Fortunately, the town of Deford City is just a remote town and has not been affected by those radicals. After the disaster, the residents of the town of Deford City began to rebuild their homes after the disaster. Check out the correct version in the 16:9 book bar. Mike, have you noticed? George and Mary have been acting a little strange these days. Missy, who was helping Mike pass tools, couldn't help complaining when she saw her parents not far away. The harmonious married life made Mary's face rosy and her temper calmed down a lot. George, who got what he wanted, seemed to have a second spring and was full of energy. Isn't this good? You don't have to worry about their divorce anymore, Mike said with a smile. It's good, but it feels wrong. Missy frowned and expressed her confusion. Obviously, the behavior of openly showing off your love is never pleasing. Missy, do you want to know why your parents became like that? Grandma Connie on the side joined the topic mysteriously. Why? Sure enough, Grandma Connie's words aroused Mrs. curiosity. Well, you'll know when you grow up. Grandma Connie, who had successfully played a prank, smiled and went to the side, leaving the little girl depressed. Because they are independent houses, compared with rows of residential buildings, the cabins of the Cooper family and Connie's grandmother were severely damaged in this storm. Even with the 3 strong laborers Mike, George and George's father, the house repair work lasted for half a month. On this day, after the 2 cabins were completely repaired, in order to celebrate the new home, the Cooper family and Connie's grandmother and others held a dinner party again. This should be veal. Where did you get it from? George's father, who was tasting the special barbecue, suddenly asked Mike. Grandma's special barbecue secret recipe. The tenderer the beef, the better. But veal that has not yet grown up is usually not available. This time, the Cooper family and Connie's grandmother and others also benefited from Mike's taste. Lina sent it. You know their farm was also seriously damaged this time, Mike explained. When the strong wind blew before, with Mike's reminder, Lina and her family did not have any problems. However, the situation of the cattle that were not recalled in time on the mountain was not optimistic. After the disaster, Lina's family lost some cattle, but more were crushed to death or seriously injured. Therefore, her family had a large number of raw beef to be processed. Fortunately, Karen's father opened a beef burger factory and needed a large supply of beef at any time. Therefore, with Mike's matchmaking, Lina's family also had a sales channel for the excess beef. And in the Cooper's restaurant, with Mike taking the lead, everyone's topic also came to the passage of natural disasters. As the saying goes, whenever there is a natural disaster, there must be evil. At this time, more than half a month had passed since the natural disaster, and the power of environmentalists had also expanded rapidly. It is reported that the radicals among them are no longer satisfied with just closing the factory. Because of the cow fart theory, some of them have begun to advocate the elimination of ** cattle on the farm. Then, something funny happened. A group of animal lover associations came into being at this moment with great justice in hand. In a word, America has become a mess because of these awakeners. Chapter 334 Another graduation season. Just as the dinner at the Cooper family was about to end, Brenda knocked on the door with a few processed hens. The strong wind caused serious damage to Brenda's house, and the chicken coop in her yard was also destroyed by the strong wind. Brenda brought chicken to the Cooper family this time, on the one hand, to repair the relationship with the Cooper family, and on the other hand, because there were too many chickens, and needed to be processed in time. "What are you doing here?" After seeing who was coming, Mary did not give her a good look. "Well, I have a lot of chicken at home, so I want to send some over for you to try." Although nothing happened with George, Brenda still looked a little guilty when she saw Mary. "Thank you, you can go." At the door, Mary took the gift from Brenda's hand, but did not let her in. Brenda, who felt guilty, wanted to apologize to Mary, but she didn't know how to start the conversation when she saw her. So, after hesitating for a while, she could only turn around and walk back without finding a chance to apologize. On the other side, Mary returned to the restaurant with her trophies in her hand, as if she had won a battle. "Who sent the chicken? It looks good." Looking at the processed chicken, Grandma Connie commented. "It was Brenda. She said that she couldn't finish the chicken at home, so she sent us some to try." While Mary was speaking, her eyes unconsciously glanced at George. It was Brenda. "I'm afraid her chicken coop will be gone in the future. It's so pitiful." Grandma Connie sighed. Because they were next door neighbors, Grandma Connie and the Cooper family could see the situation of Brenda's family. Brenda's salary at the bowling alley was not high, and because she had a half-grown boy to support at home, her life was quite difficult. The eggs produced by the chicken coop in her yard every day could more or less subsidize the family expenses. Now after the strong wind, the chicken coop is gone. It can be imagined that the life of the orphan and widow will only be more difficult in the future. "How about we go to help Brenda's family repair the house?" Little George suggested. The damage of Brenda's house was about the same as that of Cooper's house. Because there was only one woman in the family who could do things, it had been more than half a month, and his house was still in a damaged state. Little George was kind-hearted and wanted to return a favor. But as soon as he finished speaking, he felt that the atmosphere at home had become wrong, especially Mary's face turned black. Father George on the side also seemed to have a seizure and kept winking. "What's wrong with you? Did I say something wrong?" Little George, who didn't understand, showed the usual ignorant expression of little Sheldon. Just as the atmosphere became tense, Mary suddenly said, "Little George is right. As neighbors, we and Brenda should help each other. How about this? Tomorrow we will organize people to help each other repair the house." Mary, who believed in God, finally softened her heart. Just as a warning, she glared at her husband again while speaking. Father George could only smile. After the strong wind, the weather in the small town of Telford gradually became clear. In the following half a month, the residents of the small town of Telford also completed the reconstruction of their homes one after another. This included Brenda's family. With the help of the Cooper family and Mike, her house was quickly repaired. Then another month passed, and when the weather entered summer, the trend pushed by environmentalists and animal lovers slowly calmed down. It was in this situation that Mike ushered in his high school graduation ceremony. "Mike, you stand in the middle. Sheldon, Peggy, you two stand on both sides of Mike. Yes, that's it. Keep smiling with the click sound of the camera. Mike's class took their graduation photos. Then, Mike, Peggy, and little Sheldon, the three outstanding students, were left alone and took photos with a group of school leaders. It is worth mentioning that Tom, who has just taken the position of principal, has finally expressed his feelings to teacher Sharon of the Mathematical Olympiad team in the past 6 months. The two have now officially become lovers. Mike, your university recommendation letters are ready. After the group photo, Principal Tom, accompanied by teacher Sharon, found Mike and the other two and said, "No matter which university you choose in the future, I wish you a bright future on behalf of Melford High School as the best students in the history of Melford High School. Mike and the other two are likely to become the pride of the school in the future. Therefore, they deserve the attention of the principal." After greeting each teacher, Mike and the other two finally relaxed after completing the graduation process. Beside the playground, Grandma Connie and Mary and others witnessed the graduation ceremony on the spot. A perfect version of the book in 1619. Among them, Mary, who saw her youngest son successfully graduate, was so moved that she burst into tears. "Hi, Mike. Congratulations on your high school graduation." Surprisingly, Jack from the TV station also came to the scene. Because of his successful bets on Mike several times, he is now doing well in the local TV station. "You look more handsome today, even more handsome than the poster." After switching to TV media, Jack's compliments came out of his mouth. But what he said was not wrong, because Mike dressed up for the graduation ceremony, wearing a hard white t-shirt on the upper body, black casual pants on the lower body, and his hair was specially groomed. With his 1.87 meter tall figure and exquisite facial features like a dream elf, he is indeed more charming than usual. "By the way, have you decided which university to go to?" After a few pleasantries, Jack got to the point. "Oh, do you want to recommend a university for me?" Mike asked with a smile. In the past few days, he did receive invitations from many famous universities, but he has not decided which university to go to in the end. Being too good in academics and having too many choices is also a kind of distress. In the same situation, there are Sheldon and Peggy, who have also received sincere invitations from many universities. That's not the case. Jack shook his head and talked about his own situation. "I recently got an opportunity to intern at Apple City TV station because of work. If I perform well, I may stay there. So I want to ask if it is possible for the two of us to continue on the same path." It is human nature to hug each other for warmth. It seems that Jack has already regarded Mike as his lucky star. "Congratulations, you have been promoted at work." Seeing that Jack has a bright future, Mike is also very happy for him. Then, he said, "As for which university I will go to, I haven't decided yet. But the prosperous Apple City is a good choice. I will consider it." The Big Apple City, which is located in the economic and cultural center, is indeed very competitive. "Okay, you take your time to think about it. If you want to go to Apple City, remember to contact me." After Jack made his intention clear, he did not take up Mike's time. On the other side, Princess Maya, accompanied by her little maid, was already waiting for Mike. Graduation season means separation for Princess Maya. The girl has decided to go back to Genovia in a few days. Therefore, she cherishes the time she spends with Mike every day. Next to her, the little maid who has been developed, looks at Mike with a strong sense of reluctance. Chapter 335 School Selection. After spending a day and a night with Mike, Princess Maya, Amy, and Alan boarded a private plane back to Genovia. Maya, who was unwilling to restrain Mike, failed to complete the task assigned by her grandmother and take Mike back with her. Of course, the two did not lose contact. They had agreed that they would meet again sooner or later. Mike sent off the reluctant Maya and drove the red Ferrari back to the Cooper family, only to find that the whole family was sitting neatly in the living room. Grandma Connie and Peggy were also here. "What's going on?" Mike asked, noticing that the atmosphere was not right. The room was divided into two factions, mainly Mary and Father George, who seemed to be discussing something and were a bit tit for tat. George and Mary are discussing where Shelley should go to college. After explaining the situation, Grandma Connie asked, "By the way, Mike, have you decided which university to go to?" "Well, Mike pondered for a while and replied, if nothing unexpected happens, it should be Columbia University. They promised to give me sufficient education funds. The university of the name of the people is not short of excellent students, but it lacks super geniuses like Sheldon, Peggy and Mike. Especially super prodigies like Sheldon and Peggy. No matter which university they go to, they can play a good publicity role for local universities. Mike's alternative school areas are Apple City and California. Both areas are places with extremely developed economy and culture. Apple City has Wall Street, Broadway, Central Park, etc. Among them, Manhattan, Brooklyn and Queens are all standard business circles. As for California, there are fun places such as Hollywood, Disney, and the Avenue of Stars in the Los Angeles area. While ensuring economic development, it is also a good place that integrates culture and tourism and is suitable for living and leisure. It's just that considering the future development, Mike finally chose to go to the metropolis. Shelley might be able to go to Columbia University instead of the University of Texas. Father George, who wanted his smart little son to go out and see a wider world, spoke up immediately after hearing Mike's choice. Obviously, while caring for his little son, Father George is more willing to see him grow up. He had previously proposed that his little son go to Harvard, Prince, and other better schools than the University of Texas. But his wife rejected it on the grounds that his little son was too young. Sure enough, after hearing her husband's proposal again, Mary said like a chick, I don't agree that Shelley goes to school so far away. Without us around, he can't take care of himself at all. What if he learns bad things? Going to Columbia University, isn't that where Mike is with you? Besides, Shelley should learn to be independent. Father George argued. Obviously at this moment, he and his wife had a disagreement on the educational philosophy. As for who is right and who is wrong, it's hard to say. It mainly depends on the opinion of little Sheldon. But now little Sheldon has a choice difficulty. On the one hand, he is a little moved by his father's proposal, and on the other hand, he is afraid to leave his familiar environment. Surely, Professor John will take care of you at the University of Texas, and it will be convenient for you to go home if you are wronged. It's not so good to go outside. Mary turned to her youngest son, and after a guiding speech, she continued to ask, so now you choose, do you want to go to the University of Texas, or leave your parents to go to school outside? I don't know. Little Sheldon, who suffers from choice difficulties, looked tangled. Although little Sheldon has not made a clear choice, his appearance has fully demonstrated that he can't leave his parents for the time being. So, the answer is already very clear. Oh, it seems that I have to contact John. With him taking care of Shelley in the future, we can also rest assured. Grandma Connie smiled and said, how about inviting him to dinner tomorrow? Then trouble you. Mary immediately took over and decided the matter. So far, the argument between George's father and his wife ended in failure in a 1-to-2 ratio. Little Sheldon's decision to go to the University of Texas was also made in this confused situation. George, think about it. No matter which university Sheldon goes to, his future achievements will not be bad. Mike comforted George's father, who was lost. For a child prodigy like little Sheldon, the platform and teaching resources are important, and the quality of the teacher is not so important. After staying at Cooper's house for a while, Grandma Connie, Mike and Peggy went back to the opposite side. Mike, are you sure you want to go to Columbia University? Asked Peggy. Yes. Mike answered affirmatively. That's good. I also received the admission letter from Columbia University. I will call my parents and inform them that I will go to Columbia University. Peggy was a little excited to continue to stay with Mike. Over there, Grandma Connie also called Professor John and told him about little Sheldon's situation. After hanging up the phone, she asked with a little reluctance, Mike, Peggy, when are you going to leave? When people get older, they will inevitably miss the past. Read the correct version in 16:9 book bar. After more than a year of getting along, Grandma Connie has long been accustomed to the daily life of having two children at home. She felt a little sad at the sudden separation. It should be in the next few days. Uncle Kenya will come to pick me up, Mike replied. There is still more than a month before the start of the university. Mike plans to go back to Minnesota town for a while and then go to Apple City. As for Uncle Kenya, he is the manager of the farm and the private butler of the Quinn family. I'm not sure yet. If my parents agree, I want to go to Minnesota town with Mike to relax. Peggy turned around and asked, "Is it okay, Mike?" "Of course, you are welcome at any time." Mike didn't know the little girl's little thoughts, but seeing that the other party is cute, this clinging is not annoying. Having said that, the little girl is growing fast. In the past 6 months, Peggy's height has soared to more than 1.6 meters, and her girlish temperament is getting stronger and stronger. "Then when I invite John tomorrow, I will make you a barbecue dinner, which is considered to be a farewell for you in advance." The optimistic Grandma Connie's emotions come and go quickly. At this time, she has begun to think about the farewell party. The next day, after inviting Professor John to a party and Mike and Peggy to a farewell dinner, the Cooper family's banquet was even more sumptuous. "Little George, when are you going to hold your wedding with Mandy?" When George and his wife and Grandma Connie were preparing a big meal in the kitchen, Mike, who was sitting in the living room, chatted with little George. "The wedding is planned for October, a month before the baby is born." Little George replied with a smile. With Mike's support, he has no financial pressure as he runs a small repair shop. Now that he has no worries, little George only needs to focus on 2 things. One is the wedding with Mandy, and the other is to make the repair shop business bigger and stronger. "October? It seems that I can't attend," Mike said casually. "How about this? I'll leave the pickup truck to you as your wedding gift." "This? Okay. Thank you in advance." Little George wanted to refuse, but he thought that he really needed a car for his marriage, and he had already received so much kindness from Mike, so he didn't need this one. Just remember the kindness in your heart, and it won't be too late to repay it when you have a chance in the future. Chapter 336 Farewell. Professor John, who was wearing a dress and a tie, had even his hairless head carefully groomed today. Looking at his rosy and happy expression, it was destined that something good would happen. "Professor John, you are here." Mary invited John into the house enthusiastically. At this time, a sumptuous meal and special barbecue were already served in the restaurant. "Professor John, Sherry has decided to go to the University of Texas, and please take care of her in the future." Before the meal began, Mary couldn't wait to get to the point. The main reason for inviting Professor John this time was to entrust little Sheldon to his care. "I also have good news to share with you." Professor John smiled and said, "The University of Houston has taken a fancy to my scientific research ability and invited me to serve as a scientific research professor. I have already promised them." Although Professor John's previous research project thruster recovery did not win the Nobel Prize in Physics last year in one fell swoop, the way he obtained the nomination right still allowed him to show his ability on the Nobel Prize stage. Therefore, it is not surprising that he was valued by the University of Houston, which studies rocket launch projects. "This? How can you go to Houston? What about Shirley?" Compared to Professor John's happiness, Mary's face turned ugly. Thinking of her youngest son going to the University of Texas without anyone to take care of him, Mary's tone was inevitably a little serious. "I was just about to say this." Professor John, who was in a good mood, did not care about Mary's offense. He just continued, "If Sheldon is willing, he can go to the University of Houston with me. I can also reserve one of my doctoral quotas for him in the future. And Peggy and Mike, if you are also willing to go to the University of Houston, I will give you the same treatment." Professor John, who has not yet taught at the University of Houston, has already considered the honor of the school. It can be imagined that with the addition of these 3 geniuses, Mike, the future scientific research capabilities of the University of Houston will definitely be greatly improved. It can only be said that real talents are scarce everywhere. "Thank you for your kindness, Professor John. Peggy and I have decided to go to Columbia University." Mike, who was named, declined Professor John's invitation for himself and Peggy. "That's a pity. So Sheldon, what about you?" Professor John looked at little Sheldon. "No, Sherry has decided to go to the University of Texas, not Houston." Mary immediately rejected Professor John's invitation on behalf of her youngest son. Again, Mary was worried about her youngest son and didn't want him to live too far away from her. At this moment, the atmosphere in the restaurant became awkward. Professor John looked at Mary's unhappy expression and asked carefully, "Is that so? Then can I still have this meal?" Even though he had a low EC, Professor John knew why the Cooper family invited him to a big meal this time. Now that things didn't work out, he felt a little ashamed. "Why can't I eat?" Grandma Connie smiled and tried to smooth things over. "You will always be our friend, John." Father George over there also greeted Professor John. To be honest, in the past year or so, Professor John has taken a lot of care of little Sheldon. Then, during the meal, in order to express his apology, Professor John suggested, "Maybe I can say hello to Dr. Linklater and ask him to help take care of Sheldon." Dr. Linklater's scientific research level is not much worse than Professor John. And he is also very caring for little Sheldon. The reason why he doesn't seem to have as close a relationship with little Sheldon as Professor John may be that Grandma Connie is missing in the middle. "You're right, we can also ask Dr. Linklater to take care of Shelley." After Professor John reminded her, Grandma Connie also recalled the elderly gentleman who had a good impression of her. After that, she also told George and his wife about Dr. Linklater's situation. At the same time, she said that Dr. Linklater was capable of taking good care of little Sheldon. George and his wife, who soon learned the truth, also agreed to Grandma Connie's approach of seeking help from Dr. Linklater. After the dinner, before leaving, Professor John went to find Grandma Connie and said, "Connie, are you willing to live with me in Houston? I promise to treat you well." Grandma Connie and Professor John had broken up for more than half a year, but in Professor John's heart, he didn't think he had really broken up with Grandma Connie. In his opinion, there were just some misunderstandings between the two, or they were just having a little quarrel. "John, thank you for your feelings for me, but our personalities are really not suitable. You deserve a happier life." Seeing the childish side of Professor John, Grandma Connie smiled with relief and sent her blessings. To Grandma Connie, Professor John was like a child who had not grown up yet. Out of the glory of motherhood, she might be fascinated by him temporarily, but if she really wanted to live together, there was no need. After all, having a child like little Sheldon who needed to be taken care of was enough. I will always remember your Connie. Goodbye." Until this moment, Professor John seemed to really realize that his relationship with Grandma Connie was over. For him, whose first love was a twilight romance, Grandma Connie gave him too many beautiful memories. She also taught him many things he didn't know before. Check out the correct version on the 16-9 book forum. Thank you, Professor John, with tears in his eyes, finally plucked up the courage to hug Grandma Connie again as a farewell before leaving. Just like that, 3 days passed, and Uncle Kenya, who had agreed with Mike, and his son Killy drove a medium-sized pickup truck to the town of Telford. The two obviously overestimated the number of items Mike needed to transport. When Mike came to the town of Telford a year and a half ago, he was lightly packed, and this time he didn't have much to take. The Dodge pickup was given to little George, and the big head computer was left to Grandma Connie and little Sheldon. So, what Mike really wanted to take away was nothing more than a few sets of clothes. Instead, Peggy, who had obtained her parents' consent to go to the Minnesota town with Mike to relax, had a lot of beautiful clothes and skirts, as well as a large number of plush toys, etc. to take away. "Mike, remember to wait for me. When I grow up, I will go to Columbia University to find you." During the farewell session, when it was Mrs. turn, she threw herself into Mike's arms, expressing her reluctance, while telling him her plan. "Then you must grow up healthily and study hard," Mike encouraged with a smile. "You know, it is not easy for ordinary people to get into Columbia University." "I will." Missy made up her mind, and then high-fived Mike, and agreed to meet at Columbia University. Seeing the girl's serious look, Mike was embarrassed to tell her. When she goes to college in 6 years, he might have graduated from Columbia University. "Mike, see you in Apple City." Lena also came forward to hug Mike. Although the girl's grades were not very good, in order to catch up with Mike's footsteps, this time she still signed up for the affiliated business school under Columbia University. The kind of vocational school that can be attended if you have money. "See you then." Mike patted the girl's shoulder gently. Compared with the Devil Figure group and Katie and other girls, Lena is the most special one. After saying goodbye, Mike drove Peggy in his red Ferrari, and as the Cooper family and Connor's grandmother waved, they followed Uncle Kenya's pickup truck and drove to the small town of Minnesota. Compared with the semi-densely populated town of Telford, Mike's farm can be regarded as a real countryside. Peggy, who had never seen the rural scenery, also experienced the original ecological and healthy life here. Chapter 337 Business Expansion. It was mid-August. Mike, who had stayed in a small town in Minnesota for more than half a month, said goodbye to Uncle Kenya and Dennis and his wife, and boarded the train to Apple City with Peggy. At the same time, the commemorative red Ferrari was also arranged by Uncle Kenya and checked into the metropolis. What do you think Apple City will be like? In the VIP car, Peggy looked at the backward scene outside the window, her eyes full of longing. After all, she was still a child. Peggy, who grew up in a small town environment, had a yearning for the legendary prosperous and wealthy Apple City, but also a little worried. This mentality is a bit like Liu Leo entering the Grandview Garden. Maybe it's a little denser in population, a little more high-rise buildings, and a little more convenient transportation. Mike said, if you are interested, I can take you around. After arriving in the Big Apple City, Columbia University starts in early September. According to the time calculation, Mike will have about half a month of free time. After arriving in Apple City, 2 more days passed, and the express train from Texas to Apple City stopped at Pennsylvania Station. After following the flow of passengers into the waiting hall, Mike saw Chris and his secretary holding a sign. Chris is now the general manager of King Investment Company. As for King Investment Company, it is a newly opened comprehensive company under Mike's name. With more and more funds, Mike has planned to expand from the virtual industry to the real economy. An extended business car first took Mike and Peggy to a 5-star restaurant. After enjoying the big meal, the car took everyone to an independent villa in Manhattan. This villa was purchased in full according to Mike's requirements. Opposite you can see the famous Wall Street, and next to it is the Broadway Opera House. After placing the luggage, Mike finally had time to sit in the living room with Chris. What do you think? Why do you want to take out half of your assets to engage in real estate? Chris, dressed like an elite, asked the doubts in his heart. As an economic consultant, he is good at how to manage money. Now Mike's business is getting bigger and bigger, and it has involved the real economy, which makes Chris feel under great pressure. What do you think of the current economic development of Migo? Mike asked after he took a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet. It is developing very rapidly, and it can be described as business opportunities everywhere. But so what? Our base is in the stock market. As a newcomer, Chris highly advocates an old idea: never try to make money beyond your own cognition. You are only half right. If you don't think about the future, you will have immediate worries. Mike poured 2 glasses of red wine and patiently explained, you only see the prosperity of the economy, but you don't see that this prosperity is obtained by overdrawing future potential. It's like a colorful bubble. As the economic bubble expands infinitely, it will burst sooner or later. That will be a disaster. Therefore, in order not to be affected too much when the bubble collapses, it is an essential step to develop the real economy. Chris also graduated from a prestigious university and majored in economics. In this case, he has enough sensitivity to the direction of the economy. Before, he was just stuck in a dead end because of his personal limitations. After Mike reminded him, he soon realized the problem. But why real estate? Chris asked again out of caution. To put it bluntly, the real estate industry is the inherent territory of the rich. Even though Mike's current assets are close to hundreds of millions of dollars, investing in the real estate industry can only be regarded as a small splash at most. It doesn't have to be real estate. If there are opportunities in food, medical care, technology and other fields, we can also invest in a wave. Mike took a sip of red wine and continued, of course, the main focus of the investment company is better to focus on the real estate industry, which is a hot industry. Once people have money, they will want to own a house of their own. This applies everywhere. Therefore, economic prosperity means prosperity in the real estate industry. And in order to stimulate domestic demand and promote continued economic development, today's Migo Bank has gradually liberalized its loan quota. As long as the public credit score meets the standard, residents can go to the bank to apply for a loan of $1 million to several million dollars. Mike wants to take advantage of this favorable wind to complete the transformation of his asset structure. If the real estate speculation is properly operated, it can make the wealth increase rapidly with this favorable wind. Even if the operation fails in the end, the worst case scenario is that Mike will have more fixed assets. Just be sure of it. Chris basically understood Mike's idea and then said, the problem that you need to solve urgently now is to recruit more professional talents. Stock market, investment company, and future real estate industry, etc. Chris, who has multiple positions, feels Mike's trust while feeling a little overwhelmed. This time, I met Mike mainly to solve the problem of talent introduction. You should recruit some ordinary employees first to make the company run normally. As for professional talents, we will slowly look for them when we have the opportunity, Mike suggested. Talents are hard to come by, especially in the current period of rapid economic development. Generally, people with ability and brains will take this opportunity to start their own business. Okay then. Chris didn't have a good idea about talent introduction. Then, he suddenly said, by the way, Jess and Carly heard that you opened a new investment company and want to come and help. A correct version is available in the 16:9 book forum. Jess, who has experienced hardships together, studied economics and can help. As for Carly, her major in fashion design is not very useful to the investment company. Come if you want. As for the position, you can decide it yourself. We can give you appropriate preferential treatment. Mike, who is rich and powerful, said that there is no pressure to take care of 2 more people. Moreover, Mike missed the 2 beauties after not seeing them for nearly a year. Then Chris and Mike talked about some details of the company's future development. After drinking a glass of red wine, Chris, who still had a lot of things to do in the new company, chose to say goodbye and leave. Mike, come and see. There are many tall buildings outside. After there were no outsiders, Peggy, who was standing barefoot in front of the French window, called out to Mike. Across the street is Wall Street, where every inch of land is worth a lot of money. How can there be many tall buildings? It's really spectacular. If you like, I'll take you there tomorrow to have a look, Mike said, looking at the Wall Street building across the street. Mike's investment company, which has invested tens of millions of dollars, also has its own office in the building across the street. After chatting with Peggy for a while, Mike remembered to call the 3 girls of the Devil Body Group. The miracle company where the 3 of them worked was also in Manhattan. When night fell, Mike prepared a sumptuous dinner for the 3 girls from the Devil Body Group and the little girl Peggy who came later. After dinner, Peggy went back to her room with great insight. Then, with the gorgeous night view of Manhattan, a hearty battle unfolded in front of the French window in the villa. After more than half a year, the 3 girls from the Devil Body Group seemed to be working particularly hard in this battle. Holy asterisk attribute +1. Flexibility attribute +1. Dance experience +99. Singing experience +66. The girls' next inspirational album has been produced and is waiting to be released in early October. In other words, they are now in a leisure period. Therefore, in the next period of time, the girls took Mike and Peggy to check in at various tourist spots in Apple City during the day and returned to the villa at night to continue to communicate with Mike. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 Enrollment. More than a week later, because the 3 girls of the Devil Body Group did not inform the company in advance and accompanied Mike to play disappearing, they were found by the manager of Miracle Company and taken back. On the same day, Chris led Jess and Carly to Mike's private villa. They want to meet you. Chris explained the purpose of their visit. Because they had experienced hardships together, the relationship between Chris, Jess and Carly was very good. And Chris could see that the 2 girls were interested in Mike, so he was willing to do a favor. By the way, Jess is now a department manager of an investment company. As for Carly, she wants to be your life assistant. After introducing the work arrangements of the 2 girls, Chris wisely chose to say goodbye. After not seeing each other for nearly a year, the two girls in their youth are more attractive. And it can be seen that they dressed up specially to meet Mike today. Don't be nervous. What do you want to drink? Mike asked after taking the girls into the living room. After learning about Mike's financial situation, the two girls were more or less restrained because of the different classes. Anything is fine, the two girls responded. Then red wine. It helps to relax the mind. Mike went to the wine cabinet and took out a bottle of red wine and poured a glass for each of the two girls. As the wine was shaken, the mood of the two girls also relaxed moderately. Mike also chatted with the girls about family matters and recent situations, and then suddenly asked, "By the way, where do you live now?" "Jess and I still live at home, but considering the convenience of going to work in the future, we have prepared to rent a house together," Carly replied. "Is that so?" Mike thought for a while and invited, "Why don't you move in and live with me? Anyway, I have a lot of rooms here." Mike's independent villa has 3 floors, and each floor is divided into many rooms. "Is it okay? Will it be inconvenient?" Carly spoke bluntly, but with a look of joy on her face. Jess's situation is similar. Although the two girls grew up in Apple City and their families have considerable incomes. But if they want to buy a house in the commercial district, where every inch of land is worth money, the grade is still a bit lower. Not to mention Mike's luxury villa. "Why, you don't want to stay with me?" Mike smiled meaningfully. The two girls who knew Mike's fickle nature could not resist his smile. Holy attribute +1. Holy attribute +1. Flexible attribute +1. Flexible attribute +1. Glib attribute +1. After the curtains were drawn, the battle began. The strangeness between the 3 people also disappeared one by one during the exercise. Here we go again. Peggy, who was reading a book to kill time in the room, looked down at her toes with a distressed look on her face. Then, she put on a big headset. No ears, no heart in the evening. After intense exercise, Carly, who was completely clear, took on the task of making dinner to prove that she had the ability to be a life assistant. But without professional training, the dinner she made could only be said to be edible. Of course, Mike was not picky here. As for cooking, as long as he was willing, he could learn it slowly in the future. 2 more days passed, and Lina, who applied for Columbia University's affiliated business school, also came to Apple City. Mike also took her to live in the villa. So far, Mike has lived a carefree life with clothes and food provided for him, and someone to warm his body. In this way, time flies, and it is the beginning of September, the day when Columbia University starts school. In front of the dressing mirror, Carly, dressed in a black and white maid outfit, is adjusting Mike's collar. Looking at her obsessed expression, she seems to have completely replaced the role. And Mike's blue and white casual clothes today were designed and made by Carly. While imitating the suit style, this suit has special treatments on the neckline and cuffs. The casual dress with a hint of formal style makes the handsome Mike more charming and aristocratic. Just like the time at the Genovia ball. It must be said that Carla's professional knowledge is very strong, and simple designs are full of spirituality in her hands. With her level, if she doesn't become a maid, she can probably make money by opening a brand store. "You look very handsome today." Looking at her masterpiece, Carly couldn't help but leave a lipstick mark on Mike's face. If possible, she didn't want Mike to go out. Who knows how many girls he will charm with his fickleness. TSK. Just when Carly was being sloppy, the little girl Peggy, who was waiting at the door, made a dissatisfied sound. Although the little girl was very confident that she would be the only one who could accompany Mike in the end, but now seeing Mike's intimate behavior with other girls still made her feel very uncomfortable. Later, a red Ferrari drove through the busy streets and headed towards Columbia University. Columbia University and Columbia University's affiliated business school, although they belong to 2 campuses, are not far apart. A correct version is found in 1619 Book Bar. "Lina, I'll pick you up after the registration is over." Mike first sent Lina to the business school. After saying goodbye to the girl, the red Ferrari turned a corner and drove into the main campus of Columbia University. Many of the people who can study here are rich. Although Mike's sports car is flashy in color, it is not very popular on campus. But when Mike and Peggy walked out of the parking lot, they immediately attracted a lot of attention. Most of them were girls who came for Mike's good looks. Maybe it is not obvious to acquaintances, but Mike's looks are simply a dimensionality reduction attack when facing strangers. What's more, college students are at the age when hormones are the most vigorous. Brother, check out the Sigma Brotherhood. We are in need of talents like you. At the entrance of the teaching building, a muscular senior student hurriedly came up. Today is the day to welcome freshmen, and it is also the day for various university clubs to select members. Johnny, don't come here. What's so good about joining your reckless club? The voice came before the person arrived. Then, a senior student wearing a fancy suit and gold-rimmed glasses separated Johnny and said to Mike with a smile, "Let me introduce myself first. I'm Robert Musk, a senior student and the president of the Victory Brotherhood. Welcome to join the Victory Brotherhood." Because of the rise of the Illuminati and the Skull and Bones Society, various fraternities and sororities are also very popular in Mega University. And because of the frequent reports of bullying incidents in such spontaneous clubs, their reputation is not very good. Of course, if you join the right club while developing your network, you can also exercise your organizational skills, leadership skills, and cultivate your personal special abilities. Thank you for your invitation. I still need to think about it. In order to develop your network, Mike did not directly reject Robert's kindness. This is our flyer. If you figure it out, come to me anytime. Robert, who behaved well, did not get too entangled. The relationship between university fraternities and members is a mutual screening relationship. Generally, good clubs will not lack new members. On the contrary, newcomers who want to join such clubs often need to go through various tests. The reason why Robert took a fancy to Mike at first sight and was willing to compete with Johnny for him was probably because he liked Mike. But that was all. Brother, I'm not saying anything, but the Victory brothers are all scoundrels and are not suitable for you at all. Although Johnny is tall and strong, he is obviously not a big fool. After Robert left, he also stuffed a flyer into Mike's hand and said, "Sigma Fraternity is the club a man should join." "Okay, I'll consider it." Mike took the flyer with a smile. After that, some fraternities who heard the news also extended olive branches to Mike. The most outrageous thing is that even several sister groups tried to invite Mike. Until the end of registration, when he went back to the parking lot, Mike had more than a dozen fraternity flyers in his hand. This number almost covers all the fraternities in Columbia University. Chapter 339 Brotherhood. Hi Collins and Big Michael, hello. Looking at the brother and sister who unexpectedly appeared beside his sports car, Mike went up to Collins and hugged him, smiling and said, "I was just about to look for you. How are you? Are you used to campus life?" After more than a year, the body shape of the big guy Michael has not changed much, but the muscles on his body are visibly stronger. The habitual silly smile on his face has also been restrained a lot. A feeling of ferocious beast came to him. As for Collins, she was full of youthful breath in a student skirt that highlighted her figure. However, the girl's expression was a little resentful at this time, looking at the hypocritical man in front of her with a smile. In a year, Mike didn't make many calls, and he didn't contact the girl in advance when he came to Columbia University to study. If it wasn't for Collins, who knew from the grapevine that Mike came to Columbia University and specifically came to the parking lot to block him, God knows when Mike would remember her. "I heard from the coach that you are not going to continue playing football?" The big guy Michael on the side broke the awkwardness. The coach he was talking about was the high school coach Cotton. The news from Coach Cotton may have come from George's father. "Yes, becoming a professional player is not my goal," Mike answered. Compared to becoming a sports star, Mike obviously wants to be a rich man. After all, rich people are really happy. That's a pity. If you want, you can come to the university team to play. Big Michael invited. He has not forgotten the feeling of powerlessness when he lost to Mike in high school, so he dreams of winning over him once. "Let's talk about it when there is a chance," Mike replied perfunctorily. College life is so wonderful that Mike has no time to compete with the big guy. "Then it's settled. Remember to come and compete with me when you have time." The upright Big Michael smiled and continued, "I won't disturb you and Collins. See you later." The reason why the Big Michael is here is very likely to act as a flower protector to escort his sister Collins to see Mike. After watching the big guy leave, Mike got in the sports car. forced Peggy to sit in the back seat, and then patted the passenger seat, and invited with a smile, "Beauty, do you want a ride?" Collins, who was sulking next to the car, finally put down his arrogant attitude in the face of Mike's flattery. "Why did you come to school without contacting me in advance?" Collins couldn't help asking after the sports car left the school. "I recently opened an investment company, and I'm busy with work." Mike found a very appropriate excuse. The girl also knew about his previous stock speculation. As Mike explained, the tense expression on Collins' face gradually melted. But when the Ferrari stopped at the Columbia University campus and the equally beautiful Lina got in the car, Collins couldn't hold it anymore. After that, until the sports car returned to the villa, Collins didn't say another word. When they entered the villa and saw the little maid Cully, who behaved intimately with Mike, the girl almost broke down. "Peggy, go back to your room first. I'll call you at dinner time." After eating the lunch prepared by the maid, Mike sent Peggy aside. Next, there were activities not suitable for children. Holy attribute +1. Holy attribute +1. Flexibility attribute +1. Economics experience +99. Dancing experience +66. It seems that Collins is not only a sporty girl, but also a top student. During the tender time, the girl occupied the best position in Mike's arms, as if she was claiming sovereignty to the other two girls. Sure enough, the shortcut to the girl's heart is the ***. There is nothing that can't be solved by a hearty battle. Collins, who was satisfied, reluctantly accepted Mike's philandering personality. Who can blame him for being handsome and so capable? "Mike, you should pay attention to Caroline Channing of the Beautiful Sisters in the future. She may have set her sights on you," Collins suddenly said. "Is it the little princess of the Channing family that I know of?" Mike asked curiously. "Yes, Caroline is the only daughter of the rich man, Martin Channing. She just started school today, but she has already become the president of the Beautiful Sisters. She has both beauty and wealth, so this little princess has no shortage of admirers. If you are really favored by her, it means endless troubles," Collins explained. The reason why she waited for Mike in the parking lot today was also to remind him. The Channing family is now working with banks to sell funds. Banks lend money to the public on a large scale to buy houses. In this environment, some people who take out loans to buy houses in a hurry but cannot repay their mortgages will eventually have their houses reclaimed by the bank. These fixed assets are packaged into funds by banks and some big families and sold to users to obtain cash. A correct version of the book in 16:9. After that, the cash can continue to be lent to the public and interest will be collected again. As long as the economy continues to rise, banks and those families will not lose money. The Channing family took advantage of this favorable trend and gained a huge amount of wealth in a short period of time. And for a long time afterwards, the Channing family will only make more and more money. Conservatively estimated, the wealth of the Channing family will one day be able to reach the top 10 of the national rich list. In this case, Caroline Channing, as the only heir of the Channing family, is so popular that you can imagine how popular she is. You know, there is no shortage of smart people who want to take shortcuts in the world. Therefore, while Caroline is a hot commodity, she is also a big trouble for ordinary people who have a relationship with her. I know all this, but if I remember correctly, I haven't met the little princess yet. Mike had a puzzled look on his face. That's not necessarily true. We were upstairs, but we saw the grand occasion when you entered the teaching building. Seeing Mike's confused expression, Collins smiled. The grand occasion the girl was talking about was exactly when Mike was invited by various fraternities in front of the teaching building. "Do you know Caroline?" Mike caught the key point in the girl's words. "I know them. I'm also a member of the Beauty Sisters," Collins explained at once. The Beauty Sisters and the Victory Brotherhood are very famous in Columbia University. Those who can join are all wealthy second generations. Of course, the identity of a wealthy second generation is just a threshold. The Beauty Sisters also need to have a unique and beautiful appearance. And the Victory Brotherhood requires certain talents in a certain field. By the way, if you want to join a fraternity, it's best to choose one between the Victory Brotherhood and the Sigma Brotherhood. Collins continued to analyze. "I won't say much about the Victory Brotherhood. Let me tell you about the Sigma Brotherhood. From what Big Michael said, the members in it emphasize unity and mutual assistance. When exercising together, they will also help members hone their will. Big Michael has changed a lot now, and part of the credit goes to the Sigma Brotherhood. In short, one is an elite business fraternity, and the other is a muscle brotherhood. The former is an elite fraternity, and you can imagine that the members in it are likely to be very good at intrigue. And the muscle brotherhood sounds very positive. It can be said that both fraternities have their own advantages and disadvantages. Thanks for your explanation. I do want to join a fraternity. Victory Brotherhood looks good. Mike stated his intention. He wanted to join a fraternity for the connections, so he didn't have to think too much between Victory and Sigma. Chapter 340 Private Party. Welcome to the Victory Brotherhood. Believe me, you won't be disappointed here. During the club's official recruitment event on Friday, Robert Musk warmly welcomed Mike with open arms. Don't you need any tests? Mike didn't expect that the process of joining the fraternity would be so smooth, just filling out a form. You should know that the Sigma brothers next door are holding an arm wrestling event. Only those who win the gatekeeper are eligible to join the Sigma Brotherhood. For you who own an investment company, this is not necessary at all. You meet our requirements perfectly. Robert had a friendly smile on his face. Robert Musk's family is the family that owns Tesla Industry. For such a wealthy level, some of Mike's actions on Wall Street are not a secret. Moreover, if there is a list of the richest people under the age of 20, Mike must be on the list, and his ranking is not low. With such a net worth and achievements, he is already qualified to enter the upper class of Apple City. Okay, Mike accepted his new identity and then asked, what are the rules in the Victory Brotherhood, and how are the club activities carried out? The rules and activities of some fraternities or sororities are sometimes very outrageous. So for such things, it is better to ask clearly in advance. We are the rules. Robert had a strong confidence on his face. The rich people in the capitalist society were so arrogant. As for club activities, when a member needs it, he can apply for a party on his own. The purpose of the party can be to seek help, or to share, or exchange some internal information with other members. To put it bluntly, the members of the Victory Brotherhood are all people who are both rich and capable. Such people often have strong personalities, so rigid rules do not apply to them. The nature of the Victory Brotherhood is more like a gathering place for talents. Thank you for your information. Mike smiled, obviously very satisfied with his own fraternity. By the way, I have an invitation to a private party here. If you are free on the weekend, you can go and take a look. It may be helpful to you. Before Mike left, Robert handed over a gilded invitation. Party location, Channing Building, 5th Avenue, Apple City. Inviter, Martin Channing. Good fellow. Mike can be sure that he is indeed being targeted by the eldest daughter of the Channing family. I'm just passing on a message for someone. It is up to you whether to go or not. Robert gave Mike an expression that all men understand and waved his hand and said, good luck, brother. If you need any help, please feel free to come to me. Strictly speaking, the strength of the Musk family is not less than that of the Channing family, and it has more background. So Robert does not need to look at the face of the eldest daughter of the Channing family, so he has the confidence to back Mike up. Thank you for your concern. I will come to you if I need you. Mike accepted Robert's kindness. Relationships are built up little by little in this kind of give and take. After 2 contacts, Mike also realized that Robert is a rich second generation with ideas, and he is also a network worth making friends with, and the matter of passing on a message for someone else cannot be blamed on the other party. Mike, who has confirmed that he is being targeted, can foresee that, even if he chooses to join the Sigma Brotherhood next door, Johnny will probably take out an invitation from the Channing family. It was Saturday morning. A black extended business car started from Wall Street and drove along the business district to 5th Avenue. Mike, do you like watches, sports cars or precious jewelry? Chris chatted with Mike in the business car. King Investment Company, which is about to enter the real industry, needs to pay attention to the tax return issue in the future. You know, the US Federal Internal Revenue Service, ISR, is not a vegetarian. Buying luxury goods to deduct taxes is a reasonable tax avoidance method used by all companies. Is it for tax return? Sports cars, yachts, private jets, etc. can all be arranged. Mike said casually. The life of the rich is so simple and unpretentious. Conservatively speaking, our current reasonable tax avoidance fund quota should only be a few million US dollars per year. Chris glanced at Mike speechlessly and continued, this money is okay to buy sports cars, but as for yachts and private jets, it is not possible for the time being. A better yacht and private jet will cost tens of millions of US dollars at any time, and even the rich may not be able to afford it. I didn't say to buy it now, there will always be a chance in the future. Mike imagined the future. After all, when the funds reach a certain amount, how to spend money for pleasure is also a science. Yachts, beaches, sunshine, bikini beauties, etc. You can enjoy them all, if you have the chance. You are the boss, Chris said, believing Mike's evil. Then, he took out a pile of documents and continued, also, the company is preparing to look for a lawyer to cooperate with. What do you think? The company's tax avoidance problems, commercial disputes, property rights and trademark protection and other issues all require lawyers. It can be said that a qualified business lawyer is equivalent to the umbrella of the company. This is it. Mike took out a document marked with the name, Manny, from many documents. Although Mr. Manny doesn't look very eye-catching now, he will become the most legendary lawyer on Wall Street in the future. What he is best at is dealing with financial disputes. And this person is the type who takes money to do things, clean hands and feet, and will not cause unnecessary trouble to customers. Mike's impression is that the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan's future foreign exchange business, was facilitated by this lawyer. Okay, I will find someone to contact Mr. Manny later. Chris had no doubts. King Investment Company is just starting out and is not that big, so it doesn't need a famous lawyer. Lawyer Manny has a clean resume and reasonable fees, which is very suitable for the company's requirements. As time passed, the black business car drove smoothly into the prosperous Fifth Avenue. The location here is no worse than Wall Street, where every inch of land is worth a lot of money. On both sides of the street, there are the most expensive luxury stores in the world. And here, the Channing family, which owns an independent commercial building, is very powerful. I think you should wear a tie. In front of the building, Chris took out a red spare tie and looked more nervous than Mike. The correct version is found in the 16 to 9 book and bar. This private party was initiated by Martin Channing, a new Wall Street upstart. It can be imagined that the people who came to the party are probably big shots. In Chris's opinion, this is a good opportunity for Mike to make friends with the powerful and wealthy. Even if he can't make friends, it's good to leave a good impression on people. No need for a tie. I'm fine like this. Mike, wearing a casual suit, looked very casual. He knew clearly that if one's class did not meet the standard, there would be no friendship, even if he tried to get ahead. This time, he came mainly to broaden his horizons. Forget about making friends with the powerful and wealthy. Mike didn't want to do it, and couldn't do it. Okay, you are the boss. Chris seemed to have gotten used to the eccentricity of his young boss. Then, he said, I will wait for you in the parking lot over there in a while. At the party of the Channing family, only one person can enter for each invitation. At the door of the magnificent commercial building, Mike handed in the invitation letter and was led into the building by the doorman. He took the elevator to the reception room on the top floor. At this time, many successful people wearing expensive suits and expensive watches had come here. Among them were several noble ladies with beautiful faces and jewels. In addition, the reception hall was also decorated luxuriously, and waiters carrying trays walked through from time to time. Everything here foreshadowed the identity of the owner here, a super rich man. To use an appropriate metaphor, every breath here is the smell of money. Mike's arrival did not attract much attention. Even if someone was surprised by his appearance, no one came up to greet him rashly. Mike, who was enjoying his leisure time, took a glass of champagne from the waiter's tray and walked to the corner. The people who were chatting in the middle of the hall obviously knew each other. It was not easy to join such a small group without an introduction. Hi, you look unfamiliar. A young man in his 20s who looked mature walked to the opposite side of Mike and exclaimed, I can guarantee that I have never seen you before. Otherwise, with your handsomeness, I would definitely have an impression. This young man looked very talkative, and his eager expression also showed that his purpose of coming here should be to make connections. It's just a pity that the successful people in the middle of the hall seemed to look down on this young man. Therefore, he had to settle for the second best and found Mike, who was also young and suspected to be a rich second generation. Thank you for the compliment. It's indeed my first time to attend such a party. Mike responded with a smile, and he didn't dislike the very motivated young man in front of him. In this era of rapid economic development, being motivated is also a good quality. By the way, I'm Jordan Belfort, a stockbroker. What business do you work in? Jordan, who was observant, had already noticed that Mike's suit was not a famous brand. Therefore, he was a little suspicious of his identity as a rich second generation. It's not that Jordan was snobbish, but to find out the exact situation of the target is the basic quality of a qualified broker. This is an occupational disease. After all, only by finding out the situation and needs of the customer can we better sell the product. This product can be a commodity, or of course, it can be yourself. Chapter 341 The Wolf of Wall Street. Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. Mike was a little surprised after hearing the self-introduction of the young man opposite him. He didn't expect that he would meet him at such a party by chance. You know, Mike had asked Chris to send him news before. Jordan, who has extraordinary eloquence and sales skills, likes to ask the question, how do you sell this pen to me? He is also willing to share sales skills. He has the quality of a gold medal lecturer and is also very good at cultivating talents. He is a rare leadership talent. My name is Mike Quinn, and I have made some money in stocks at present, Mike said while looking at the young man opposite him. According to Mike's understanding, Mr. Jordan should have just started his career and his net worth is only tens of millions. Under normal circumstances, he should not be qualified to attend a private party of this nature. Oh, we are in the same industry. Nice to meet you. Jordan had a smile on his face, and he was thinking in his heart, if there was a surname of Quinn on Wall Street, there is no way. Mike still looks too young. It is hard to believe that he can start from scratch. Then, after confirming that there was no Quinn family on Wall Street, Jordan had to classify Mike into the same category as himself. A striver who is unwilling to be mediocre and seizes opportunities to climb up. Which stock are you doing business in now? It was rare to meet such a young colleague, and Jordan could hardly suppress his desire to communicate. I'm involved in the technology, medical, and food industries, Mike answered. He did not deliberately remind the other party that he was a shareholder. He was not like the other party who was a stockbroker, that is, a trader. These two identities seem to have something in common, but in fact, the way to make money is very different. Technology, medical, and food. These industries are indeed very profitable now, but for us, this is not the best choice. Jordan shared his experience. You know, only by locking up the client's funds in the stock market for a long time can we get more commissions. Yes, in Jordan's view, the way stockbrokers make money is to keep clients in their hands for a long time and use the other party's money to make money for themselves. In this case, junk stocks are the best choice. As for whether the client's stock makes money or not, it doesn't matter. In fact, if the stockholder's stock is too profitable, they are likely to cash out and run away immediately. Without these clients, stockbrokers naturally have no money to make. A seemingly absurd, but very reasonable logic. Tell me more about it. Mike, who had nothing to do, didn't mind getting in touch with Jordan. If the other party's talents are used well, they will often have miraculous effects. As for the fact that the other party's bottom line is too low, and he doesn't hesitate to cheat ordinary people's money, what does that have to do with Mike? Those junk stocks that can't be sold are the best medicine for us. There is a lot of room for operation. Jordan introduced his own experience, buying low and selling high, locking up retail investors, and taking both sides. It was with this method that Jordan sold stocks that no one wanted to sell to the poor on a large scale, thus earning himself a lot of commissions. So, what we have to do is not to find out which stocks make money, but to try every possible way to sell the junk stocks. Finally, Jordan summarized his speech. Perhaps because he grew up in a poor family, Jordan was smart and eloquent, but his vision and knowledge limited his development. This is why, after he made a lot of money by manipulating the stock market in the future, He did not think about turning over and becoming a big capitalist, but was bent on transferring the money to a Swiss bank abroad. Little did he know that this was the way to bring disaster. For any Georgia, transferring his country's property to a foreign country is equivalent to cutting off the firewood from the bottom of the pot. From the perspective of law and sustainable development, this behavior is not allowed by Georgia. Therefore, it is not surprising that Jordan was targeted by both the FBL and the ICE. Very interesting theory. Mike smiled and did not correct the other party's cognitive error. For Jordan, who is full of vigor and ambition, it is the best time to buy him only after he really suffers a loss. It can only be said that those who play tricks are all black-hearted. Mike is no exception. It's just a little cleverness, not worthy of praise. Although he said so, Jordan was still very happy that his theory was recognized. Perhaps because he liked Mike, Jordan then decided to take out some dry goods. So, now try to sell this glass of champagne to me. Sure enough, this dry goods is very hardcore. Jordan smiled and put the champagne in front of Mike. This was obviously an alternative. SELLING*** question. For us, is it worth celebrating to attend such a private party? Mike accepted the challenge. He was trying to sell champagne to Jordan. Of course Jordan replied. He was worth only tens of millions, but he had many connections to have the opportunity to meet many successful people at the scene. Then what are you waiting for? Let's celebrate today. Mike pushed Jordan's champagne back in front of him. Real sales promotion is so simple and unpretentious. It is nothing more than looking for opportunities, or creating opportunities to send the goods you own to the other party. Perfect. Jordan could no longer suppress the smile on his face. He felt like he had met a soulmate. Then, he praised, I can guarantee that you will definitely become a super rich man. Even if you are not now, you will definitely succeed in the future. A correct version in 1619 book bar. For Jordan, becoming a rich man is the greatest success. When the goblets touched each other, as the wine turned over, the glasses made a crisp collision sound. Jordan, who was in a good mood, was already thinking about whether to develop the young man opposite him into his companion. Ambitious Jordan was no longer satisfied with making small money. He was planning to manipulate a stock himself to gain huge wealth. Of course, manipulating the stock market was a marginal act. Once discovered, bankruptcy was a small matter, and there might be jail time. After a few flickers in his eyes, Jordan decided to be safer. Even if he wanted to recruit someone, he would need to do more research. Just as the two were chatting, many more guests came to the living room. At this time, the time for the party agreed by Martin Channing was about to arrive. Please take your seats according to the seats on the invitation letter on the small stage at the front of the hall. A middle-aged man who looked like a butler greeted the guests. The hall for this party was arranged into two areas. One was a large free activity area, and the other was a small podium in front of the hall. Under the podium, there were several rows of chairs. Obviously, this private party convened by Martin Channing was more like an exchange meeting for the rich. This also explains why Jordan took the trouble to come to the scene. Sometimes, inside information often means opportunities, and opportunities often mean money. You are sitting in the first row. Jordan, who was about to pull Mike to the back row to sit in the corner, saw the seat specified on the invitation letter, and his eyes jumped. It seems that I need to get to know you again. How about I treat you to a drink when I'm free? At such a private party, the seat number does not represent everything, but it indicates that Mike is also a person of status. This made Jordan feel that little brother turned around and became a big leg. Okay, I will definitely go if you treat me, Mike responded with a smile. Then, in Jordan's envious eyes, Mike went to sit in the middle of the first row. At the same time, those successful people who didn't care much about Mike also cast surprised eyes. It was in this atmosphere that today's protagonist Martin Channing, accompanied by his daughter Caroline, walked in from the main entrance. Caroline, who was supposed to sit in the luxurious chair on the side of the stage with her father, turned around and sat in the empty seat next to Mike after arriving in the first row. This action also made Martin Channing, the father, keep his eyes on Mike for 2 more seconds. Some guests at the scene showed understanding on their faces, and they looked at Mike with no more surprise. After all, compared with the identity of a rich man, the identity of Caroline's boyfriend, or the identity of a gigolo, is not worth too much attention from those successful people. Jordan, who is also a young man at the scene, is probably the only one who looks at Mike with more envy. Who wants to suffer when they can take shortcuts? Chapter 342 Cooperation. As a new Wall Street upstart, Martin Channing is not tall, of medium build, and dressed in ordinary clothes, but he has a unique charm. At this moment, he is standing on the small stage with a gentle smile, just like a good friend, sharing his success experience. There is no lack of exquisite speech skills in his humorous words. Compared with Jordan, the telemarketer, his language is obviously more inspiring. I heard that you opened an investment company. Do you want me to talk to my dad and let him take you to do business together? Caroline slowly approached Mike in the first row under the stage and whispered. This intimate move shows that the girl is really interested in Mike. However, judging from her awkward pickup skills, it is estimated that she has never taken the initiative before. She feels a bit like a silly girl. Thank you, but no. I can run my company myself. Mike declined the girl's kindness. Looking at Martin Channing's current state, he has already shown some signs of engaging in pyramid selling, and Mike doesn't want to waste his money. And looking at Caroline's expression, she didn't seem to really want to help. She probably just wanted to use the name of helping to control Mike. It's easy to guess what a girl with this expression on her face is thinking. You don't know how to be kind. Caroline, who failed to show her kindness the first time, sat up straight in anger. Then, in the following time, the girl's eyes kept glancing at Mike, as if playing a childish game of who speaks first. Everyone knows that there is no end to the money in the world. In this era of rapid economic development, the Channing family is willing to share their money-making tips. At the same time, on behalf of the Channing family, I welcome everyone to become our partner at any time. More than half an hour later, Channing's highly inflammatory speech ended. Then, he opened his arms and thanked. May God bless America. Long live America. The audience seemed to be inspired and applauded. Long live America. At this time, a huge echo suddenly came from the back row. Jordan stood up, clapping and shouting vigorously, and his fanatical appearance seemed even more excited than Martin. Oh, a lucky fraudster. Caroline looked at Jordan's performance with disdain on her face. The reactions of other guests at the scene were similar to hers. Do you know Jordan? Mike asked the girl beside him unexpectedly. Of course, this man named Jordan Belfort sold junk stocks to poor people through telephone sales, and I don't know how many people he cheated. This is no secret to people on Wall Street. Caroline, who has a sense of justice, took this opportunity to show off her knowledge. Sure enough, Caroline is still living in an ivory tower now, and her affluent life makes her mind very naive. If she really knew the truth, she would know that what her father did was 100 times more abominable than Jordan. One is at most a telephone fraud, and the other is an accomplice of bank cards, and is even planning to raise funds illegally. In terms of social harm, the two are incomparable. At this time, Martin on the stage has achieved the effect that today's party wants to achieve. As soon as the speech was over, he was surrounded by a group of successful people who seemed to be discussing how to make money together. Jordan, who had just performed well in the back row, tried to squeeze next to Martin several times because of his net worth, but failed. Then, he saw Mike, who was chatting with Martin's daughter. Hi, Mike. Won't you introduce me to her? Jordan came over in a familiar manner. This is Caroline, the eldest daughter of the Channing family. Mike introduced Caroline to Jordan, and then turned to the girl and said, That's Jordan Belfort, a friend I just met. Hello, Miss Caroline. It's an honor to meet you. Jordan had a decent smile on his face. His purpose of coming here was to get to know the eldest daughter of the Channing family through Mike, and then to make friends with the upper class through this eldest daughter. It can be said that he took great pains. But Caroline obviously didn't buy his account, and the contempt on her face was almost undisguised. Well, maybe I was presumptuous. Faced with contempt, Jordan reacted quickly and eased the embarrassment with a little self-deprecation. Then, he changed his target and started chatting with Mike, praising Martin Channing in his words. In a sense, Martin, who quickly became a super rich man, could be regarded as Jordan's idol. Mike, on the other hand, had seen the gatherings of the upper class, and it was nothing special. Therefore, he was also happy to chat with Jordan for a few more words, deepen their relationship, and prepare for the future. However, his actions seemed to annoy Caroline. Looking at the two men chatting and laughing, the young lady felt that she was ignored. After glaring at Mike, she left the reception room with her exquisite handbag. The dissatisfaction on her face could be seen by anyone. "Sorry, I seem to have disturbed your date with that young lady." Jordan pointed out that Mike could catch up. As an old hand, how could Jordan not see that the young lady was interested in Mike? "In fact, we are just alumni, and our relationship is not that close." Mike, who already has a certain amount of capital, will not accommodate the other party's young lady's temper. A perfect version of the book Forum 16-9. If you bully everyone you see, you're just a bully. "Brother, I really admire you now." Jordan gave Mike a thumbs up. But after seeing the other's handsome face, Jordan seemed to understand something. As the saying goes, those who are favored are always fearless. Besides, this private party at the Channing family was much simpler than Mike imagined. Mr. Martin, in addition to being busy promoting his business, did not arrange too many programs. Therefore, after more than half an hour, this private party of the rich ended hastily. Downstairs of the Channing building on 5th Avenue, Mike waved goodbye to Jordan and watched him get on a small business car and leave. "How did you really get together with that Jordan? I have to remind you that he is not a good person." In the extended business car, Chris started to remind Mike. As Caroline said, the name Jordan Belfort is already notorious on Wall Street. But this is also Jordan's own fault. Not only is his way of making money rough, but his personality is too eager for quick success. To put it bluntly, he was too young and his life was too smooth, so he never suffered any loss. "Don't worry, I know what's going on." Mike smiled knowingly, and then continued, "Mr. Jordan is a talent. We can try to recruit him when we have the chance. So, I need you to keep an eye on his every move and report to me at any time if there is any situation. It is known that Jordan will manipulate a stock and make more than 20 million yuan in the first 3 minutes of the opening. Mike can follow behind and make a quick buck. Then, when Jordan is in trouble, he can extend an olive branch to the other party. This is a win-win situation, and Mike wins twice." Okay, Chris, who didn't know the inside story, thought that Jordan was indeed a talent to achieve his current achievements from scratch, so he agreed to Mike's proposal. Next, after a week of relaxation after the start of school, Columbia University's courses officially got on track. Unlike what Mike thought before, in addition to popular majors, Columbia University's main campus also has majors for those rich second generations whose families are rich, but don't like to study, such as social studies and market research. Of course, there are also sports majors specially set up for students with sports talents like the big guy Michael. But these have nothing to do with Mike. He and Peggy both applied for advanced mathematics as their first major, which is an elite class at Columbia. Later, Peggy also took elective courses in physics, biology, chemistry and other subjects. Mike took elective courses in economics, psychology, law and other subjects. For super geniuses, taking a few more subjects is nothing. As long as it does not delay the progress of the first subject, the school will not interfere with the student's affairs. Chapter 343 Werewolf is 18 years old. Scott Howard is a typical good student. He is not tall and does not run fast. He is also a bit cowardly. He is the type that bad kids like to bully the most in high school. However, this thin boy has an extremely strong love for sports, especially basketball. Therefore, after successfully entering Columbia University, he did everything he could to join the school basketball team. However, his poor motor nerves and weak personality made him still play the role of punching bag in the basketball team. However, all this changed after Scott's 18th birthday. On his birthday, he inexplicably found that his body seemed to have endless power, and his hearing and vision had reached a level that ordinary people could not imagine. His ears could hear the cry of babies several miles away, and his eyes could see things clearly in the dark. This change made Scott extremely excited, just like Spider-Man who had just gained superpowers. But then Scott discovered that when he was too excited, something seemed to come out of his body. That feeling was like an instinct. Finally, Scott couldn't help being excited, and a thick layer of long hair appeared on his body, sharp claws grew on his hands, and there was more violent emotion in his heart. He was frightened and hurried to the mirror. Only then did he realize that his appearance had changed. 2 pointed ears, a funny black nose, and even fangs grew in his mouth. Unable to accept that he had become a monster, he rushed out of the room to find his father for help. However, when the door opened, Harland, who was also covered in long hair, seemed to be waiting for his son here. After his father explained, Scott learned that his family had some werewolf blood, that is, the last generation of werewolves, or half werewolf. Afterwards, Harland taught his son the secret of transformation. As long as he was calm, he could turn back into a human. At the same time, he also seriously warned his son not to reveal his identity as a werewolf in front of outsiders. However, Scott, who was in adolescence, could not control his emotions at all. In another competition between the school basketball team and the opponent, he finally broke out, after being suppressed by the opponent for the whole game. Scott, who turned into a werewolf, overturned all the opponents, and completed a wave of single-player dunks. Just when he turned around and wanted to celebrate with his teammates, he found that everyone present had a look of fear on their faces, as if they were afraid of something. Only then did Scott react that he had turned into a werewolf again in his excitement. Then, not knowing how to face everyone, he chose to escape from the campus. Then, things became magical. Before Scott's transformation into a werewolf was completely fermented, it was deliberately suppressed. The Apple City Daily and the school jointly stated that Scott was just a reversion phenomenon and gave the other party the title of Hairy Boy. And the person involved, Scott, seemed to be more satisfied with his werewolf form, which made him omnipotent on the court. For a time, Hairy Boy became the school's basketball star. Hi, Mike. What a coincidence that afternoon after school, on the way to the basketball gym, Caroline, who was dressed up, unexpectedly ran into Mike again. It's a coincidence. Mike looked at the girl with a bright smile in front of him and said speechlessly, "Are you so idle every day?" Now it has been more than a month since the start of school, and in the past month, the girl has ran into Mike at least 50 or 60 times with various reasons. Who can stand running into him twice a day? You are also very idle, and you go to the basketball gym every day after school, Caroline retorted. Through this period of contact, she has a better understanding of Mike's personality. Although he is handsome, he is not cold, and it's okay to make a little joke occasionally. By the way, where is your little tail? Caroline asked curiously on the way to the gym. You mean Peggy? She's not someone's tail, Mike explained. The little girl doesn't like the atmosphere in the gym. She has gone home to study now. After all, she is a super genius. After experiencing a period of confusion in high school, Peggy came to college and regained her passion for learning. And for a pure-minded genius like her, the satisfaction after gaining new knowledge is obviously more fascinating than gaining honor or material satisfaction. This is probably the joy of learning. At the school, as Mike and Caroline walked into the basketball hall, they immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. Then someone took the initiative to give them the best viewing position on the sidelines. At this time, on the court, Scott, who was covered in long hair, was performing a windmill dunk. Physique main attribute +1. Bounce attribute +1. Strength attribute +1. Super sense of smell, characteristic. Mike, who accidentally caught a special large light ball, unconsciously showed a happy smile on his face. Isn't this the reason why he insists on coming here to watch basketball training games every day? Read the correct version in 1691 book 1 bar. After integrating the characteristic light group into his body, Mike immediately felt that his sense of smell was amplified countless times. Some tiny odor factors rushed straight to the brain, making people feel like vomiting. After getting used to it for a while, Mike learned to block some unnecessary smells. You seem to be very interested in Scott, are you? Seeing Mike staring at the court in a daze, Caroline came up with a teasing smile on her face and continued, do you want to dissect that? Furry boy. This seems very interesting. The popularity of furry boy has not passed. Due to his powerful physical talent after transformation, there are many biologists who want to study him. Of course, this does not include Mike, who is an insider. I'm not interested in dissecting the human body. Mike shook his head, and his nose was still filled with the fragrance of the girl, including the faint rose scent of Clive Christian's perfume and the unique virgin scent of the girl. Then, before the girl blushed, he turned his eyes back to the basketball court. In fact, in the basketball training match that Mike was paying attention to, in addition to Scott, there was also the sunny and handsome Mark Friedman, a rich second-generation illegitimate child. At this time on the basketball court, Mark was the only one who could compete with Mayo with his exquisite skills. Basketball experience plus 99. Basketball experience plus 66. Administrative experience plus 66. Copywriting experience plus 50. Management experience plus 10. Yes, this sunny and handsome Mark, who is 1/10 of Mike's, always reveals some strange things in addition to his basketball experience. For this reason, Mike once paid special attention to him. This classmate Mark looked young, but his behavior always gave people a sense of old-fashionedness. That kind of weird feeling was like a middle-aged soul in that young body. Of course, the strange experience groups he had revealed so far were not very helpful to Mike. So Mike's first target now was still Scott. At this time on the basketball court, Scott relied on the strong physical fitness of the werewolf to complete a difficult crotch dunk performance again. Facing the cheers of the audience, Scott turned his eyes to Lisa Marconi on the sidelines. This classmate Lisa, with blonde hair, blue eyes, long wavy legs, and good dressing skills, was a Columbia University campus beauty. Although she couldn't compare with Caroline, she was more than enough to charm a little boy like Scott. But flowers fall with intention, but water flows without mercy. Lisa, who was being focused on by Scott, was now obsessively staring at the dazzling Mike in the audience. Chapter 344 College life is good. Lisa Marconi is a typical big girl, young, beautiful, vain, and wants to be noticed. When she first came to the basketball hall, she was indeed eyeing Scott's identity as a hairy boy and wanted to control him to improve her own reputation. However, when Mike, who has the aura of attention, arrived, the girl immediately changed her target. Obviously, compared with the hairy boy, the handsome and rich Mike is more attractive and valuable. Mike, do you still remember me? Finally, Lisa took the first step. Under the murderous gaze of Caroline next to her, the girl smiled and approached Mike to chat. And when Mike turned his head, the girl pretended to squeeze her huge cleavage casually. Of course, Lisa. If I remember correctly, we took classes together in the biology major. Mike replied with a smile. I didn't expect you to remember. Lisa showed a pleasant surprise on her face, and then sat down next to Mike. It's like this. I don't understand a few biology knowledge. Can you guide me when you are free? While speaking, the girl pressed most of her body against Mike, and her huge breasts were rubbing Mike's arms. Compared with the silly and sweet Caroline, Lisa obviously knows how to use her advantages better. Bitch as expected, seeing the girl's little action, Caroline cursed inwardly, and then turned her face away with disgust. Although Caroline has regarded Mike as her prey, she is a little embarrassed to let her lower her status to compete with other girls for men. Physique main attribute plus 3. Physique main attribute plus 1. Endurance attribute plus 5. Super hearing, characteristic, Mike, who got another characteristic light ball, turned his head to look at Scott, whose eyes were about to spit fire on the basketball court, and then looked at Lisa, whose eyes were about to get into his arms. This, as expected, young people have a hot temper. The characteristic light ball that Scott contributed this time was obviously related to Lisa. This made Mike find the right way to take advantage of the other party. Helping classmates is a virtue. You are welcome to come to me at any time. Smelling the strong peach perfume on the girl, Mike adjusted his sitting posture and half wrapped his arms to make it easier for the girl to get close to him. From a certain angle, the two seemed to have hugged each other. This scene was like adding fuel to the fire for Scott, who was paying attention to this side. Physique main attribute plus 5. Physique main attribute plus 4. Strength attribute plus 5. Super strength, Characteristic. Supervision. Characteristic. Werewolf body. Half awakened. Good guy. It's said that young people have a hot temper. With just a little move, Mike took out all the good things from Scott. Scott. Pay attention. Scott, who was only concerned with being jealous on the basketball court, was hit by a good ball from his teammate again. The school coach on the sidelines finally couldn't help but protest. Seeing that Scott was about to fall into autism, Mike, who had been fleeced enough on the sidelines, decided not to torture this poor child anymore. So he stood up and walked out of the basketball hall, and Lisa followed closely. Caroline, who was behind, cursed bitch again, and followed him out in high heels. Get in the car. Mike, who got into the red Ferrari in the parking lot, said to the girl who followed him. Waldorf, or Chatwell? After deciding on a couple's hotel, the red Ferrari did a beautiful tailspin and left the Columbia campus. You bitch. Caroline, who arrived later, looked at the sports car going away and stepped on her high heels angrily. The Waldorf *** hotel can provide couple check-in services with very complete facilities and a variety of ways to play. Charm attribute +5. Flexibility attribute +3. Holy Spear attribute +1. Singing experience +66. After more than an hour, Mike, who had felt the good life of college, dressed neatly and walked out. Wait. Seeing the man's ruthless appearance, Lisa, who had become limp, still forced herself to sit up. The sheets fell, revealing the girl's milky white Snow White skin with some spots on it. Anything else? Mike turned around and asked calmly. The girl's skills were fine for friendly matches, but if she wanted to go further, forget it. Mike said that he was not so hungry, that he would eat anything. No, Lisa could feel the man's indifference, but in the end she still asked unwillingly, what kind of relationship do we have? Probably the relationship between a teacher and a seeker of knowledge. Mike answered. He did teach the girl a lot of biological knowledge just now. Arsehole. Seeing the man leave without any reluctance, after he finished speaking, Lisa threw the pillow out with all her strength. But if she really wanted to hate Mike, the girl was a little reluctant. A perfect version in the 16-9 book forum. After all, compared to her previous boyfriend, Mike did give Lisa the happiness she had never felt before. This time, the two of them got what they needed. On the other side, Mike, who left the hotel, integrated all the light balls he got from Scott into his body at once. After a refreshing moment, the characteristics of super smell, super hearing, super strength, etc. finally merged into the semi-awakened werewolf body, like a swallow returning to its nest. Werewolf body, possessing 5 times the physique of an ordinary person, including strength, speed, endurance, recovery and other attributes. And Scott's semi-awakened werewolf body is about 3 times the physique of an ordinary person. Of course, this semi-awakened werewolf body is not just as simple as improving half of the main attribute of the physique for Mike. A good news, the semi-awakened werewolf body seems to have opened the upper limit of Mike's main attribute of the physique. Conservatively estimated, with the blessing of the moonlight feature, after Mike completely digests the werewolf body, he should be able to reach about 15 times the physical fitness of an ordinary person. Horizontally, it is about the same as Captain Migo. Just as Mike was driving home in a good mood, Scott, who had finished a day of training in the basketball hall, also walked towards home accompanied by his childhood sweetheart. Scott, you are not in good shape today. Are you worried? Susan asked knowingly. As a childhood sweetheart, Susan fell in love with Scott when she was very young, and for this reason, she worked hard to get into the same university as him. It sounds like a romantic love story. It's just a pity that as the other party of the protagonist, Scott's mind has never been on Susan. Susan, who has a round face, a flat body, short hair and can't dress up, can only be regarded as cute at most. For boys, she is indeed much less attractive than big beauties like Lisa. I'm fine. I've never been this good facing the concern of his childhood sweetheart. Scott was stubborn for a while, and then asked with a lack of confidence, who do you think is more attractive, me or that Mike? Obviously, he was still upset about the fact that Mike had seduced his goddess in the basketball hall before. Are you talking about Mike Quinn? Although she wanted to comfort her friend, Susan still gave him an expression that she understood and said, "You two are simply not comparable. It is really difficult for people to compare the hairy kid and the charming Mike. One is like an orangutan in the zoo, and everyone just watches the fun. The other is a high quality man who can capture many girls just by his appearance. Damn it. One day I will prove to Lisa that I'm better than Mike." Scott, whose self-esteem was hurt, roared unwillingly, "Scott, you're a little scary." Susan looked at her friend baring her fangs and advised, "I think you should face yourself and learn to accept your ordinary side." Susan, who was more thoughtful, had gradually realized that the students in the school did not really worship the furry boy, but watched the furry boy for fun. You know, beasts that don't hurt people and can talk are not common. I don't want to discuss this issue with you. Scott is me, and the furry boy is also me, and I prefer the strong me." Scott, who maintained his werewolf state, had some of the wildness of animals. "See you tomorrow." After venting to his friend, Scott jumped a few times with his school bag and left the girl behind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 The Worried Dad. "Peggy, help me sort out the locker." At the entrance of the teaching building, Mike looked at the extra gifts in his personal locker and said, "It's still the same old rule. Please help me deal with the letters. If you like the gifts and snacks, you can keep them, and if you don't like them, you can throw them away." Mike's super high appearance and charm make him more and more popular with girls at Columbia University. Every morning, there will be a lot of love letters and gifts from girls in his personal locker. "Are you sure you don't want to read the letters? Maybe there is a girl you like in it." Peggy skillfully put the gifts into her small backpack and teased the man. The girl has now figured it out. For a boy as outstanding as Mike, it is nothing to have a few more confidants when he is young. Anyway, the person who will be with him in the end must be only herself. This is due to the super genius and confidence in his IQ and appearance. Here we have to say that the girl is growing fast. When this summer came, Peggy seemed to have entered a period of rapid growth. As her height increased, her female characteristics have begun to take shape. The exquisite facial features and the cold temperament of the female academic tyrant make her charm vaguely surpass that of girls like Regina. "There's nothing to see. I can guess the content," Mike answered without interest. At first, out of politeness, Mike would open the letter and take a look. But as some nude photos of girls and more perverted private messages gradually appeared in the letter, it was obviously not a confession, but a sexual harassment of himself. It was like a toad biting someone. It didn't hurt anyone, but it was disgusting. Mike, who had gradually become accustomed to college life, now also set his sights on the extraordinary events in Apple City. According to reliable information, several underground bars in the far city of Manhattan are likely to be haunted by species suspected of vampires. In this case, Mike, whose physique is 10 times stronger than that of ordinary people, is also preparing to find an opportunity to visit. Therefore, he was in no mood to care about the thoughts of the girls in the school. Another day of study ended. Mike sent Caroline away, who had ran into him again, and walked to the parking lot with Peggy. "Excuse me, can I take up a moment of your time?" An unexpected figure appeared at the entrance of the parking lot and stopped Mike. After signaling to Peggy that he was fine, Mike followed the person to the corner of the parking lot. Basketball experience plus 66. Copywriting experience plus 15. Administrative experience plus 10. Yes, the person who came was Mark Friedman, the young man with good basketball skills. His expression looked a little strange at this time, as if he was suppressing his anger, and seemed to be annoyed. "What's the matter, Mark? Shouldn't you be practicing in the basketball hall now?" Mike asked. This Mark, like Mayo Hay, seemed to have an obsession with basketball. "I came to you this time to tell you to stay away from Maggie," Mark warned with a complicated expression. "Maggie? Are you talking about Maggie O'Donnell? I don't seem to have provoked her." Mike's eyes flickered. Mike had some impression of the girl named Maggie. The other party seemed to like staring at him from a distance. Moreover, the letters and small gifts Mike received were mostly sent by the other party. I know you didn't take the initiative to provoke her, but please be careful. Mark didn't seem to organize his words well, and said awkwardly, "Oh, that's about it. Goodbye." Wait, Mike was warned inexplicably, and called the other party unhappily, whispering, "Should I call you Mark Friedman or Mike O'Donnell?" After noticing Mark's abnormality before, Mike specifically investigated the other party's situation. Mark Friedman is a special sports recruit of Columbia University. As the illegitimate son of Ned Friedman, a rich second generation who has never married, he appeared very abruptly. Mike O'Donnell, whom Mike just called out, is a small clerk in a financial company. He is in middle age and has problems with his career and family. He encountered layoffs at work, and because he likes to complain at home, his wife, who can no longer bear it, filed for divorce. In this case, Mike O'Donnell, who encountered a midlife crisis, suddenly disappeared from the world. It is worth mentioning that the disappeared Mike O'Donnell had a good friend, Ned Friedman, who was a rich second generation. The time when Mark Friedman appeared coincided with the time when Mike O'Donnell disappeared. Mike just felt strange at first and did not completely connect the young man in front of him with the old man in the midlife crisis. However, the young man in front of him cared about Maggie O'Donnell like an old father, which made Mike have a flash of inspiration and a bold guess. For some reason, the middle-aged Mike O'Donnell's body recovered to the age of 17. With nowhere to go, he found his rich second-generation friend. Then he changed his name Mike to Mark and took his friend's surname. This also makes sense why Mark is young in body, but behaves like a middle-aged man. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Mark, who was called by his name, seemed to be cast into a spell, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Basketball experience plus 99. Copywriting experience plus 66. Administrative experience plus 15. Blessing. Return to youth. Features a correct version in the 1619 book forum. As Mark became more and more nervous, a large number of light balls burst out of his body. There seemed to be something very interesting among them. Mike, who got the blessing light ball, was more certain of his guess. There seemed to be an unimportant existence behind Mark, and it was worth continuing to pay attention to. Maybe I remembered it wrong. Mike smiled. Just when the young man on the opposite side relaxed his nerves, Mike suddenly asked with a bad taste, "You came to me, is it because you like Maggie?" No. Mark seemed to be frightened and waved his hands hurriedly. "I have nothing to do with Maggie." Although he said so, his reaction seemed to be a bit ambiguous. If Mike guessed correctly, this Mark Friedman, Mike O'Donnell, was Maggie O'Donnell's biological father. I told you to warn people for no reason. This won't scare you to death. I was just joking. Don't get too excited. Mike, who had satisfied his bad taste, smiled and patted the shoulder of the young man opposite, and said, "See you next time." Mark, with mixed feelings, watched Mike leave, and didn't want to go to the basketball hall again. He drove the sports car of his rich second generation friend, and hurried to the other's luxurious villa. On the other side, Mike, who was driving a red Ferrari, was also on his way home with Peggy. "Mike, what did that person want to talk to you about just now?" Blowing the cool evening breeze, Peggy's imagination opened up and said, "Did you steal the other person's girlfriend? What are you talking about? Am I that kind of person?" Mike slowed down the car and pinched the girl's face while the traffic light was red. Not to mention that it feels good. During this period, Mike had more contact with Lisa and Caroline in school besides Peggy. Among them, Caroline, the eldest lady. Needless to say, no one in the school would spread rumors about her. Lisa, on the other hand, did not dare to spread the news of her special relationship with Mike after Mike's reminder. Therefore, Mike's reputation in Columbia University was actually quite good. Who knows what kind of illness Mark would have today and suddenly come to him. HMPH at the traffic light, Peggy slapped Mike's mischievous hand away and discussed his behavior. Chapter 346 The Worried Dad, continued. Mark, my good son. If you have anything that makes you unhappy, tell your dad in a super luxurious villa. Ned, a second generation rich man, saw his friend collapse on the sofa as soon as he came back, so he smiled and came over. A typical bad friend. To be honest, Ned envied his friend for being able to return to his youth, and it still felt a little unreal to him. They were both middle-aged, so why could his friend go back to school to make up for his regrets while he had nothing but Maine? I'm Mike O'Donnell, not Mark, nor your son. Forget it, whatever you want. Mark, who had something on his mind, was no longer able to correct his bad friend, so he let the other party take advantage of him. Ned Friedman is a super rich second generation, rich and free. In this case, there is a reason why he has not started a family in his middle age. The villa is filled with expensive real-life models of Batman, Flash, etc., as well as Ned in Star Wars equipment. In fact, he is a severe second-generation middle school patient. We have no rivals ahead. Ned, who found out that his friend was in a bad mood, picked up the lightsaber and posed in a handsome way, shouting, "Who bullied you? Tell me, I will help you get revenge." Looking at his friend's funny appearance, Mark said helplessly, "No one bullied me, but someone seems to have discovered my identity." To be honest, Mark was really scared when his identity was exposed in school before. It shouldn't be. Ned was also surprised and said, "I personally went to get your new identity, and you have changed so much, now that even acquaintances may not recognize you." "I hope so." Mark felt uneasy when he thought of the process of contacting Mike before. There was a reason why Mark, who was middle-aged, was unhappy with his work and often complained about his wife, making his life a mess. When he was in college, as a star player of the school basketball team, he should have embarked on the path of a professional basketball player and had a bright future. But before a crucial basketball game, his girlfriend, now his wife, told him that she was pregnant. It was this news that made Mark, who was competing, give up the competition and choose to start a family with his wife. Thus, he lived a mediocre and cowardly life of an ordinary person. 18 years passed in a flash. The gap in life made Mark, who was middle-aged, regret the choice he made in college. Therefore, he developed the habit of complaining to God, and his words mostly hoped that he would have another chance. Then, the turning point appeared here. God seemed to hear his appeal. On a rainy day, Mark met a homeless man who had no money to pay the bill in the supermarket. The unhappiness in life did not smooth out the kindness in the man's heart. So out of kindness, Mark helped the homeless man pay. Then, turning around, the homeless man who left the supermarket took out a dagger and robbed Mark in revenge. Although he felt very surprised seeing the homeless man's equally miserable appearance, Mark still took out all the money on his body. At the same time, he kindly advised the other party to get on the right track. "You are a good person. Please tell me your wish now." The homeless man suddenly turned back and asked strangely before leaving, "I want to go back to college to make up for my regrets. Can you help me?" Affected by the atmosphere, Mark answered in a strange way. Then, he laughed. "Very good. I hope you won't regret it at this moment." The homeless man snapped his fingers, and Mark's eyes went dark, and he fainted gorgeously in the heavy rain. When Mark woke up again, he found that he had become what he looked like when he was 17. God really gave him a chance to start over. This time, Mark determined his goal and embarked on the road of professional basketball again. However, Mark, who went to Columbia University with a new identity, found that his daughter, who behaved very ladylike at home, was actually a flower maniac at school. She was fascinated by the handsome Mike, and his son Alex O'Donnell, who was tall and strong, was actually a punching bag on the university campus, the kind that anyone could bully. Yes, Mark's two children inherited his good genes and were admitted to Columbia University at the same time. Just looking at the unpromising appearance of his children on the university campus, Mark, the old father, was also worried. "Ned, I've decided." Mark, who had been struggling for a long time, suddenly said seriously, "While I fulfill my basketball dream, I also want to take good care of Maggie and Alex. At least let them get rid of their bad habits." Sure enough, no old father can watch his children degenerate and turn a blind eye. Obviously, Mark made concessions on the important matter concerning the future of his children. "Are you sure? You should know that the problem of your identity has not been solved yet," Ned reminded his friend. "Once Mark chooses to contact his children, the risk of his identity being exposed will only be greater. It doesn't matter. You said that no one will believe that I'm Mike O'Donnell in this state. For the sake of the children, Mark is also willing to go all out. A perfect version in the 16-9 book bar. Okay, what are you going to do? Ned said righteously. I will try my best to cooperate with you. First of all, Maggie, I want to help her shape the correct view of choosing a spouse. At the same time, I want to let her know that a man who is too handsome is not a good match. She can't grasp it at all. Mark, who found an opportunity, did not forget to black Mike Quinn when he talked about the plan. Then, he continued, and Alex, his character is too soft. I want him to join the school basketball team and train him well. Very good, the plan is perfect. But it seems that I have nothing to do with it. Ned pondered for a while, in order to feel involved. Then, he said generously, how about this? I can provide financial support for your plan. It must be said that the brain circuits of the second generation rich with second year syndrome are indeed very strange. On the other side, Mike, who also returned to the villa, had already enjoyed dinner served by the little maid. Carly, who took the time to sign up for a temporary chef training class, has improved her cooking skills significantly recently. Mike, I have also learned some massage techniques recently. Do you want to try it? Carly, who had cleaned up the tableau, returned to the living room. Of course Mike lay down comfortably on the sofa, very satisfied with the motivation of the little maid. Then Lisa and Jessica, who were unwilling to be lonely, also gathered around to observe and learn. On the other side, the little girl Peggy curled her lips and went back to her room silently. On the sofa, Mike, who was enjoying the massage with his eyes closed, interacted with the girls with his hands, while silently reciting in his heart, integrating blessing, rejuvenation, characteristic, into his body. You know, this strange characteristic is the first time he has obtained it. As a refreshing feeling spread, Mike felt that all the cells in his body seemed to come alive, and the whole person seemed to be back to the age of 17. He has infinite energy. What? Mike is 17 years old now? That's fine. Mike, who has integrated blessing, rejuvenation, characteristic, also understands its purpose. The effect seems to be a bit similar to the eternal youth characteristic in the demon body, but this blessing characteristic is more like a layer of buff. It is injecting vitality into Mike's body cells all the time. An alternative perpetual motion machine. Okay, let me reward you. Mike, who felt that his waist was full of vitality, stood up and pushed the three girls to the French window. Under the hazy moonlight, the bright lights of Apple City are like stars scattered from the Milky Way. Chapter 347 Unexpected Invitation. Mike, here is a very special letter. You'd better take a look. Another morning, Peggy, who was helping Mike organize his private cabinet, took out a special letter. There was no text on the envelope, only a black figure was printed on the seal. MIB is short for the Men in Black Organization, and its full name is the Black Super Special Forces. An assembly organization that does not exist in the public eye and does not belong to any organization. Its main task is to maintain world peace. Very interesting. Mike smiled. If an uninformed person saw such a letter, he would only think that someone was playing a prank. However, Mike, who knew that this world had extraordinary powers and aliens, was not surprised by the appearance of the Men in Black. After all, he had seen him once in a movie theater in Texas. It was just that Mike was a little surprised to receive such an invitation. You must know that the Men in Black organization is an elite team, and each agent is selected from within the military. While ensuring the loyalty of the agents, they can also ensure that they have a certain combat effectiveness. In this case, Mike, who usually maintains a low-key style, really didn't know when he was targeted by the other organization. But it's okay this way. Mike had investigated the whereabouts of the Men in Black before, but because they were too clean, he had never found any clues. Now, they came to him. Looking at the address of the Men in Black marked at the bottom of the document, Manhattan 6th Avenue Bridge and Tunnel Authority. The final signer, Ms. Mike confirmed again that the date of the invitation to the selection in the document was this weekend. So Mike decided to postpone the trip to visit vampires and contact the Men in Black first. On the other side, Mark also started his own children's transformation plan. He found his daughter who was writing a love letter alone in the lecture hall. But when he saw the other party stuffing a cool artistic photo into the pink letter, he finally couldn't hold it anymore. "Hey, Maggie, you can't do this." Mark stepped forward to stop her like an old father. To say that Maggie O'Donnell is actually quite beautiful, with soft brown long hair, and the whole person looks weak and bookish. But such a beautiful woman is a serious flower maniac in her heart. Commonly known as late stage of the appearance oriented person. Maggie, who was trapped in her inner world at this time, was first startled by the voice in her ear. Then, she hid the letter behind her back and stared at the person angrily. "Who are you, and why are you here? If you can't explain clearly, be careful that I will sue you for ****harassment. The tiered classroom, if it is not a large class, generally no students will come here." Seeing his daughter's vigilant look, Mark was a little relieved, but the other party's eyes, that looked at her like a pervert, made Mark feel very headache. "Well, I'm just a passerby," Mark explained guiltily, and then started to preach. "It's wrong for you to do this. How can you send that kind of photo to a boy you don't know? As a girl, you must first learn to respect yourself and love yourself." Unconsciously, Mark put himself in the role of an old father. Little did he know that his current young appearance was not suitable for preaching at all. "Enough. Why are you nagging like my dad? And my dad never said that to me." Maggie stopped the boy who was inexplicably familiar with her and warned him, "Don't talk to me in that tone, and don't let me see you again." Mark's appearance and tone, when he was preaching, obviously brought back bad memories for the girl. So after a warning, the girl left the lecture hall angrily. Mark, who was despised at the back, was a little frustrated at first. Then he comforted himself. "At least it's a good start. We have already communicated." After contacting his daughter, Mark began to look for his son on campus again. After asking around, he finally found his son in the bathroom cubicle. Alex O'Donnell looked very embarrassed at this time. Mark persuaded, "You have to learn to be tough. And you can tell your parents, or ask the teacher for help. Are you done? If you are, I'll leave first." Facing Mark's concern, Alex just calmly went to the sink to tidy up his appearance. "Hey, did you hear what I said?" Seeing his son's cowardly look, Mark got a little angry for a while. "Why, do you want to take it out on me too?" Alex numbly put his face forward and said, "Please go ahead." The disharmony in the family made Alex's character cowardly and his heart a little twisted. "Since you don't do it, then I'll leave." Seeing Mark standing there in a daze, Alex turned around and left the bathroom indifferently. What a sin. After a contact with his children, Mark's mood became more complicated. A perfect version in 1619 book bar. "Hi, Mark. You look very bad. Is there anything bothering you?" In the corridor, Mike, who was in a good mood, saw the distraught Mark. Because there was a big fish hidden behind Mark waiting to be caught, Mike didn't mind building a good relationship with the other party. "I'm fine." Mark was still on guard against Mike. However, thinking of his son's troubles, he decided to seek help from Mike, a real young man. "I mean, if someone is suffering from campus bullying, how can I help him?" This kind of thing can be divided into many situations. If it is because of physical or mental defects that he suffers from bullying, then he should start with the defects, face the defects and change them. Mike made a simple analysis and then continued, "Of course, if you really want to help the other person, you can also put yourself in the same position as the other person and become a friend with the other person first. In this way, at least the other person will have a companion when he is bullied or wants to resist. The first situation that the bullied person encounters is likely to be isolated. If he has a powerful friend at this time, then the problem of being bullied will naturally be solved." Good suggestion. Mark's face showed understanding. Becoming a friend with his son and helping him is not what Mark wants to do. Mike's words seemed to help him sort out his thoughts. "Thank you for your advice. You are actually a good person." Mark, who hadn't tied his knot, had a different view of Mike. Mike, who had received another good guy card for no reason, gave the other party a speechless look and let the other party figure it out. "By the way, Mike, if you receive Maggie's love letter tomorrow, don't open it. There are some things in it that are not suitable for you to read now." Before leaving, Mark remembered his daughter's outrageous behavior again. After Mark left, Peggy suddenly asked in confusion. Mike, why do I feel that person is a bit strange? His temperament is not like that of a person of this age. Although his body has become younger, it is difficult for Mark to correct the inherent behavior patterns of middle-aged people for a while. This is also the weirdness of him. Who cares? It has nothing to do with us anyway. Mike casually helped the other party to cover up. That's right, Peggy nodded in agreement, then pulled Mike and shouted, then let's go quickly, class will start soon. As the bell rang, the students began another painful day of study. Of course, Mike and Peggy are different from geniuses. Class time is just a place to study for them. Commonly known as self-study. Obviously, the learning progress of the two has already far exceeded the content taught by the teacher in class. Chapter 348 Agent Selection. It was the weekend, and Mike, wearing a casual suit, drove a red Ferrari to the headquarters of the Men in Black. Manhattan's 6th Avenue can be regarded as the transportation hub of Apple City, with the most roads and overpasses. Because the Hudson River flows through here, there is also a port bureau. Judging from the overall industrial development level, the practicality here is obviously greater than the residential attribute. God knows why the MIB headquarters is located here. Following the guidance of the address on the invitation letter, Mike drove the sports car all the way to the suburbs and finally stopped at the lower reaches of the Hudson River. In front of him was the huge stone pier of the Cross River Bridge. Further to the side, there was a large area of desolate land. With such concealment, it is no wonder that Mike had not found any clues about the headquarters of the Men in Black before. Hey, man, nice sports car. With the sound of an undecent whistle, a strong black guy followed the exhaust of the car and came to the stone pillar. Let me introduce myself. My name is James Edwards, an ordinary detective in Apple City. Perhaps because he saw the same invitation letter in Mike's hand, James' attitude was enthusiastic. Damn, this place is really hard to find. I don't know what the MIB does. At the same time, James, wearing a loose sweatshirt, also has the unique rapping skills of black people. I thought they were looking for agents, but now I feel that they are more likely to look for actors or models. Could it be that MIB is actually an agency, but the headquarters is in a place like this, so the business must be bad? While complaining, James did not forget to look at Mike while observing the surrounding situation. Detection experience plus 66. Counter detection experience plus 50. Shooting experience plus 35. Rap experience plus 10. I have to say that James is indeed a detective favored by the Men in Black headquarters. He is really not bad in terms of vigilance. Mike Quinn, a freshman from Columbia University. Nice to meet you. After the other party shut up, Mike greeted the future agent J. Got. I said that MIB doesn't sound like a formal organization. After knowing Mike's student identity, James really began to doubt the motives of MIB. Wait, why do I feel that you look familiar? Have you been an athlete before? Football? By the way, you are Tornado. Obviously James' memory and observation skills are both very good. At least in this case, he still has time to think divergently. And the familiar face he mentioned is probably the inspirational documentary about Mike's football team last year. What Mike didn't expect was that the documentary would be so widely circulated. I was a member of the Melford football team. Mike suddenly felt a little ashamed when he heard the nickname Tornado. Yes, it was a high school league documentary. I remember you. I thought this guy was good at the time. After recognizing Mike's hidden identity, James was obviously more enthusiastic and continued, "Are you still playing football now? I can see that you are very talented and will definitely become a sports superstar in the future. We will have a chance to talk about this later." Mike brought the topic back and said, "Shouldn't we find the entrance to the MIB headquarters first? The best way to suppress chatter is to divert the other person's attention. Who knows what will happen if the two continue to chat. You're right, we should go and see what MIB is." Speaking of business, James returned to normal. Then, the two knocked on the big stone in front of them and finally found a small window behind a weed. "Hi, we are the people called by Ms. How do I get in?" James shouted at the book-sized window while using his hands and feet to gesture how to get in through such a small window. In the entrance reception room, a staff member in a black suit had actually seen the situation outside through the monitoring equipment. especially Mike and the other two, with their special invitations in their hands. Following James's shout, the staff member pressed the door opening button. Then, with a sizzling sound, a highly technological metal door appeared on the tightly fitted stone pier. Behind the door, there was another long fantasy tunnel. It must be said that Mib has a good imagination and actually designed the headquarters underground. Where should we go to find Mizzo? After entering the door, James asked the receptionist in the reception room. The receptionist in a black suit pointed to the other end of the tunnel in a high cold manner, but did not speak. The staff here are really cold. No wonder the business is not good. James complained while walking along the only passage. It is worth mentioning that his pace was a little faster than Mike's, and his right hand was always close to the pistol on his waist. Mike was sure that, if there was any danger, the other party would definitely draw his gun at the first time. In this way, the two walked to the end of the passage, and did not meet anyone else. At the end, there was a row of rooms, the largest of which had its door open. There were 8 active military officers in various uniforms. Judging from their fierce aura and the patterns on their shoulder straps, they were obviously elites selected from various military teams. At this time, James, who felt the same aura, relaxed his tense nerves a little. The assessment time is up. Please take your seat as soon as possible, otherwise it will be considered as a waiver. A man in black in the room looked outside and said expressionlessly, "Wait, I don't know what you are going to assess and whether your organization complies with the regulations." James was full of doubts. However, facing the question, the man in black in the room did not mean to answer. The military officers sitting in a row in the room also looked straight ahead and were very disciplined. After the assessment, you should be able to get the answer, Mike reminded James, then walked into the room first and found a hemispherical chair to sit down. This chair was like an egg cut in half vertically, with bare edges, and it was not comfortable to sit in it. What kind of chair is this? It's too uncomfortable. Sure enough, James, who sat next to Mike, complained about the chair. Of course, his complaints did not have any effect. The only man in black in the room had already distributed test papers and pencils to everyone according to the procedure. The questions on the test paper were not difficult. They were probably about how to deal with emergencies, evacuating people and doing follow-up work. However, the man in black only distributed test papers and pencils to everyone, and did not prepare a table for everyone to answer the questions. A correct version of the book in 169. Bar. The thin and brittle test paper and sharp pencil, without a suitable place to answer the questions. It was really difficult to write on the test paper. At this time, the 8 military officers on the side had already collapsed the test paper on their legs and started to answer the questions. It was just that the sound of puff of poking the test paper from time to time proved that this method was not applicable. "Hey, sports boy, come over and give me a hand." James, who also poked several holes in the test paper, thought of the only low table in the room. Yes, there is a high table in the middle of the room. James was leaning on the table at this time, winking at Mike. "Why don't you bring the test paper over?" Mike went to the table, spread the test paper on the low table, and sat on the ground to start answering questions. "Don't say, this height is just right. Why didn't I think of it?" James also followed suit and brought the test paper over. "You know, the base of that row of hemispherical seats is more than 1 meter high. If the low table is moved over, it will also be inconvenient to answer questions." On the contrary, the method Mike thought of is not only convenient, but also very practical. After a comparison, the behavior of Mike and the others also attracted the attention of the 8 military officers in the back. "There are still many places here. If you want, you can come over." After feeling the surprised eyes of the other few people, James generously extended an invitation. However, out of discipline, the 8 military officers quickly retracted their gazes and still insisted on writing on their legs. Although the man in black in the room did not question the illegal behavior of Mike and the others, this is very likely to be a tacit approval of Mike and the others' actions. "It looks like we found 2 good little guys this time. Isn't that right, Agent K?" A half-white-haired lady in a room, separated from the examination room by a wall, said. In this slightly smaller room, a high-tech LCD screen was playing the situation in the examination room. It's too early to say this now. Whether he can pass the test in the end depends on him. Agent K, with wrinkles on his face, looked business-like. K, you are still so old-fashioned. Ms. O smiled and turned to the fat man with a mustache behind her and said, Mr. Z, help me organize the information of the little guy named Mike. Okay, Ms. O. Mr. Z replied. Yes, there are 3 men in black in this small room. In addition to special operations personnel like Agent K, the Men in Black organization also has managers like Ms. O and civilian staff like Mr. Z, but as they get older, the Men in Black organization is now in urgent need of new blood to join. And for this assessment, strictly speaking, James and Mike are not qualified to be here. But because James has a close relationship with Agent K, his place is specially recommended by K, of course. After the opportunity is given, K will not interfere whether James can finally pass. As for Mike, it is because Ms. O needs someone to take the lead in dealing with the increasing number of supernatural events on the planet. So Mike also got this opportunity. Chapter 349, Passing the Test. Time to answer questions. Half an hour later, the black-clad man in charge of the exam said expressionlessly, Congratulations on passing the first round of tests. Please follow me to conduct a practical exercise. After the written test, the black-clad man did not seem to have the intention of collecting the answer sheets. After looking at everyone, he turned around and walked out to the right. What does this mean? Are you kidding us? James, who had racked his brains to finish the test paper, could not help but complain again when he saw that his work was ignored. It's true that he almost guessed the correct answer. The first round of assessment is indeed a test of the student's psychological quality. If someone gives up the exam because it is inconvenient to answer the questions, he will lose the opportunity to enter the second round. Don't say it. You think your answer will be better than this. Mike gestured to the 8 military officers who had already walked out of the room. You know, those people are professionals in dealing with emergencies. You are right. James looked at his scribbles on the paper and felt inexplicably better. He felt like stealing a chicken. Then, wanting to save face in the second round of assessment, he said excitedly, Let's catch up. I will prove to you that I'm better than them in the actual combat exercise. In the actual combat exercise room on the right side of the aisle, a street corner scene was arranged through lights and images. Suspicious people will appear in the scene later. I want you to find the dangerous ones among them and kill them in the shortest time. The black-clad invigilator distributed 10 bright silver pistols to everyone while explaining the assessment content. Is this the WP-99 series? Why do I remember that this series only has P-88? Looking at the exquisite semi-automatic pistol in his hand, James' eyes were full of doubts. In fact, the WP-99 pistol is indeed the latest semi-automatic pistol improved by the black-clad research team, and it has not been sold to the public yet. This is also a secret of the organization, so no one answered James' doubts. At this time, the black-clad invigilator had already pressed the actual combat test button. Under the flickering lights and fog, more than a dozen figures of different shapes appeared in the simulated street. Most of them were alien monsters with bared teeth and scary looks. Only a cute little girl holding a book in her arms was an exception. Bang, bang, bang. With the dense sound of gunfire, all the monsters were covered with bullet holes. What was surprising was that a bullet hole also appeared on the target with the image of the little girl, which looked very abrupt. So much so that the 8 soldiers who had completed the shooting all turned their eyes to Mike, with puzzlement in their eyes. Yes, the bullet on the little girl's target was caused by Mike. At this point, the 9 students on the scene had finished the assessment, and only James was still holding the gun and hesitated to pull the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. 2 more gunshots, and James, with sweat on his forehead, made the same choice as Mike. After the second round of actual combat drills, the black-clad invigilator passed by the 8 soldiers and looked at Mike and James, asking, Tell me your reasons. After all, in the simulated scene, the threat level of any monster is much higher than that of the seemingly harmless little girl. Expression. Mike explained, if this is a real scene, the little girl surrounded by monsters has a very plain expression. I can't even see any fear on her face. Think about it. If an ordinary person is suddenly held hostage by a monster, he will be considered brave if he doesn't urinate. Not to mention that the little girl still has a cute smile on her face. On the other side, James made the same choice as Mike because of his intuition. After hearing the other party's explanation, he also noticed a lot of details, and then he also said, the sports boy is right. Look at the monster on the street lamp. It looks scary, but in fact it is probably exercising. And the monster wearing headphones on the road. It should be running at night. The most important thing is that in such a street full of monsters, a little girl is holding a book on quantum mechanics. This is very suspicious. That kind of book is too profound for a child. To sum up, the little girl who wants to appear harmless is the final villain. After a messy explanation, James turned to look at Mike and asked in a tone of praise, how about it, am I right? Mike saw James's proud look and his eyes couldn't help but jump. He wanted to tell the other party that, in fact, for the super little prodigy, the knowledge of quantum mechanics is not profound. Of course, the current situation is not suitable for talking about this. At this time, the black-clad proctor seemed to have received instructions from the earphone. He glanced at Mike and James again, and said to the rest of the people, the 8 of you follow me, let's go to the next vision test. It was pronounced as vision test, but in fact it was to do memory erasure. Obviously, these 8 military police had been eliminated. In the small house on the other side, Mizzo, who had watched the entire test process, smiled and said, okay, Agent K, now you can go meet your new partner. And Mr. Z, go and help me bring that little guy named Mike over. As we all know, the black-clad men go out in pairs. As for Agent K, because his previous partner, Agent D, chose to retire because of his old age, he is now in urgent need of a new partner. Therefore, it can be said that this time the black-clad men's entry test was held entirely to help Agent K choose a new partner. A correct version of the book in the 16-9 forum. Hey, buddy, I didn't expect your shooting skills to be good. We can compare them when we have time. James in the second examination room looked very stable. Then, he did not forget to complain. Are we eliminated? Why is there no one to take care of us? The people here are really unprofessional. Just at this time, Agent K and Mr. Z, both in black suits, came over. Mr. Mike, please follow me. Someone wants to see you alone. Mr. Z called. For some reason, Mike will join the men in black, which will be different from other ordinary agents. So he has to go through an interview with Mizzo. Sports boy, be careful. Before Mike left, James whispered, these people are not dressed like good people. If there is any situation, remember to shout for help. I can support you at any time. After the two said goodbye, Mike was taken to a small room by Mr. Z and met Mizzo, whose hair was half white. Mike, answer me a question first. Mizzo asked with a serious expression. Do you think there are demons or angels in the world? Yes, ma'am. I think there are. Mike answered affirmatively. The second question, what do you think about the existence of aliens? Mizzo continued to ask questions. I think the universe is infinite, so aliens must exist. Mike gave an affirmative answer again. This is the process of knowing the answer and then inferring it backwards. Do aliens exist? If the mother planet is compared to a swimming fish, and the infinite space of outer space is compared to seawater, then as long as the fish explores enough places, one day she will definitely meet other same species. If the fish has never met its own kind, it is probably because the fish has been kept in a fish tank by people and has become an ornamental fish. So from a certain perspective, the existence of MIB at least proves that human beings live in the sea. Very good. It seems that you are not an ordinary person just like me. Mizzo smiled and continued. We have the premise for communication. In fact, in front of Mizzo, there is a detailed information of Mike, which records demon sacrifice, vampires, cannibals, alien cinemas, etc. These events are nothing when viewed separately, but if they are connected together, you can find Mike's extraordinary side. It can only be said that the intelligence department of the Men in Black organization is indeed capable. Chapter 350 Sun and Moon. 2000 years ago, Jesus proved the existence of God to people. 500 years ago, the witch hunt movement proved the existence of demons to people. 300 years ago, the black blood disease proved the existence of vampires to people. Mizzo said slowly, looking back on human history, such extraordinary events are not uncommon. but for various reasons, all of this has not received enough attention from humans. As she spoke, Ms. O waved her hand and asked Mr. Z to put a document in front of Mike. The document showed that every year many people were bewitched by mysterious forces, resulting in tragedies. Among them, there were also figures of dangerous creatures such as vampires and werewolves. It is worth mentioning that Mike also saw information about cannibals in the document. There are 7 cannibal dens like the one beside the Texas highway in the entire Migos territory. The good news is that except for the one in Texas that was destroyed by Mike, the other 6 cannibal dens were also destroyed by the Black Clad organization that rushed there later. In order to deal with these mysterious events, the MIB headquarters has decided to set up a special department, codenamed X. After Mike roughly browsed the information, Ms. O introduced, Department X is temporarily preparing to recruit 2 teams, namely Sun and Moon. You are one of the candidates I selected. Of course, the premise is that you are willing to join us. On the other side, Mike, looking at the information in his hand, felt that he had come to the right place this time. With the ability to pick up attributes and a certain self-protection ability, he is least afraid of dealing with extraordinary events now. I want to know, do you have more detailed information about these extraordinary events? Mike put down the information in his hand with regret. Although these records of extraordinary events are very comprehensive, it is obvious that important parts have been deliberately hidden. Also, I want to know who are the other candidates for Department X. Mike, who has already intended to join the MIB organization, asked the doubts in his heart. It seems that you have made a decision in your heart, but for the sake of safety, you still have one day to think about whether to join us. You must know that when you stare into the abyss is also staring at you. Ms. O gave Mike more time to think. Then, she continued, as for your questions, I can answer them now. The first question is that you are not authorized enough to view more information about the extraordinary events. The second question is that so far, the candidates for the X department, in addition to you, include the Exorcist Constantine, the Blade Warrior Eric, the Demon Hunter Van Helsing, and the Grimm brothers. Don't say it, the competition in the newly formed X department is quite fierce. Of course, the premise is that Ms. O is not lying. You have to know that none of the people she mentioned is a simple person. Mr. Z, take Mike to visit our mysterious shelter and explain the rules of the X special department to him. After the interview, Ms. O began to see him off. Finally, she did not forget to say to Mike, if you decide to join us after the visit, please report here on Monday morning the day after tomorrow. After leaving the office, Mike was led by Mr. Z through the MIB service hall. Alien language experience plus 99. Spaceship driving technology experience plus 66. Environmental adaptability experience plus 35. In the lively alien reception, aliens of various appearances lined up, waiting to apply for planetary temporary residence permits. There are nearly 1,500 aliens living with us on the blue planet. In order to ensure that they don't cause a big mess, we need to identify their information one by one, as well as their intentions to come to the blue planet, etc. Mike has almost been designated as an employee of MIB, so Mr. Z doesn't mind telling him more about the organization. Strictly speaking, MIB is a global organization, and it also has headquarters in the capitals of some other countries. Such coverage is to ensure that every alien who comes to the blue planet can live a law-abiding life. As for those aliens who want to make trouble, the special forces will tell them who is the master of this planet. Passing through the service hall, Mr. Z took Mike to a secret room that looked like a fried fish room. There were mysterious items sealed with talismans and holy water, and some monster corpses infected by mysterious forces. I don't know if it was because they were all suppressed, but Mike didn't pick up any attribute light balls here. Of course, it may also be because the level of the things here is too low, not enough to explode the attributes. On the other side, after Mr. Z introduced the exhibits here one by one, he continued, the X department you are going to join is a special department in MIB. Due to the nature of the work, you need to frequently contact ordinary people. So, you can keep your original identity outside. But when facing internal personnel, you also need to use your own code name. This is convenient for communication. For example, your name is Mike Quinn, and your name starts with M, so your internal code name is Agent M. After explaining the basic situation of joining the X department, Mr. Z sent Mike back to the entrance of the headquarters. By the way, considering that you are still in school, if you are sure to join us, the organization will help you solve the problem of school leave. Before parting, Mr. Z said considerately, "To be honest, some extraordinary powers on the blue planet are no less threatening to humans and aliens. But the current Men in Black organization has very few means to deal with extraordinary powers, so every candidate for the X department is very precious to the organization." This also makes sense why Mr. Z's attitude towards Mike is so friendly. At the same time, Agent K seemed to have finished introducing the Men in Black to James. A correct version can be found on the 16-9 book forum. Agent K, who also sent James back to the entrance, warned him, "Men in Black have no past and no future. If you want to be my partner, you must be prepared to cut off all contact with the outside world. We only have code names. Of course, apart from these disadvantages, you will enjoy an exciting life if you join us." After giving James a day to consider, Agent K returned to the Men in Black headquarters with Mr. Z as the gate on the stone pier behind him disappeared. James felt like he was dreaming, and it was very unreal. Aliens really exist, and the idea of the Men in Black to maintain world peace is also true. Sports boy, have they also invited you to join the Men in Black organization? James took the initiative to chat with Mike again. It seems that talking non-stop can calm his mind. "I've been wanting to tell you for a long time that I don't play football anymore, so you can just call me by my name." Mike corrected the other party's address and continued, "They did invite me, but I'm going to join the X Special Division." Then, Mike explained to the other party the difference between a normal agent and an agent in the X Division. "This is unfair. Why can you keep your original identity in the department you join, while I have to make a decision with the outside world?" Sure enough, after hearing the difference in treatment between the two, James started to complain again. "Maybe it's because the department I'm going to join is X," Mike said with a smile. "X represents the unknown and the infinite, and also represents goals and hopes. Of course, the candidates for the X division can keep their outside identities, most likely because the events they have to face mostly happen among ordinary people. They need to contact the public at any time. Special operations personnel like Agent K mostly deal with aliens. In some cases, they only need to deal with aliens, and don't need to deal with ordinary people." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.